mortal rise through 100 reincarnations. Hey, fanfic family! So glad to see you here again to continue this incredible adventure. As always, kindly remember, this story is 100% fiction, so don't go looking for dimensional portals in your closet. All rights to this fantastic novel belong to the original author. We're just your humble narrators of epic tales. Are you enjoying the fanfic? Show it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and dropping us a like. And if you're impatient for more exclusive content, our Patreon is your happy place. Chapter 151 Lava River. 7 days later, the lava receded. In a hollow underground cavern within Boiling Spring Valley, the ground was silent, the surrounding earth and rock a scene of burning and melting. Suddenly, with a crash, a large chunk of earth and rock fell from the rock face, revealing a pitch-black cave entrance. Zhao Sheng, dusty and grimy, emerged from the cavern. Breathing the scorching, murky air, Zhao Sheng was speechless, a faint feeling of having escaped disaster. Undoubtedly, the lava eruption 7 days ago had completely altered the topography of Boiling Spring Valley, undoing the Zhou family's millennia of hard work. Zhao Sheng calmed his mind, unleashing his spiritual sense to follow the path carved by the lava, searching for a way out. Half an hour later, after many detours and dead ends, Zhao Sheng felt himself getting closer to the surface. One indication of this was the significantly lower temperature. A moment later, Zhao Sheng found himself in a bumpy tunnel. He could already sense fresh air at the end. Zhao Sheng's heart surged with joy, his spiritual energy suddenly surging. He lifted off the ground, poised to fly out. At that moment, a figure suddenly flashed past at the end of the tunnel. Zhao Sheng's gaze fixed, and his right hand swiftly flicked through his storage bag, revealing 2 spirit-suppressing talismans and an invisibility talisman. Instantly, he suppressed his aura, concealing his form, and nestled himself in a recessed groove at the top of the tunnel. Soon, a figure swiftly passed below, sprinting deeper into the tunnel. It's him. Despite the person's swift movements, Zhao Sheng recognized him. Zhou Yings, the current patriarch of the Zhou family, a cultivator who had reached the great perfection of the foundation establishment stage and should have been the most important target, was still alive. This surprised Zhao Sheng immensely. However, judging by his pale face and weak breathing, he was clearly seriously injured. Zhao Sheng knew the Zhou family was doomed, but why would Zhou Yings dare to risk discovery and enter the Boiling Spring Valley at this critical moment? He must have a grander plan. Zhao Sheng didn't hesitate, gathering his strength and quietly giving chase. Zhou Yings was severely injured, his meridians and internal organs less so. More seriously, his soul had been struck by the icy spirit's divine light, freezing both his spirit and soul. Without prompt treatment, he would be dead once the icy cold completely invaded his soul. Consequently, he was forced to risk his life and enter the Boiling Spring Valley, seeking a treasure hidden deep underground. After flying for about a quarter of an hour, passing 7 or 8 forking paths, Zhou Ying stopped in a spacious cave. He then released a small mouse, the size of a palm, its fur pitch black except for a pair of eyes as bright as a diamond. Upon landing, the mouse squeaked twice and darted deep underground. Zhou Ying's face lit up at the sight, and he quickly followed. Zhao Sheng didn't dare to follow too closely, nor did he use his spiritual sense to probe, carefully tracking it by scent. Over the next few days, Zhou Yings traversed countless molten lava tunnels. Sometimes, when the path was blocked, he had to dig a new passage himself, a task that consumed the better part of his time. After squeezing through a narrow, jagged crevice, Zhao Sheng saw a faint red glow ahead, and of course, a wave of heat. Zhao Sheng paused, then slowly drifted to the entrance, completely concealing himself, cautiously releasing only a hint of his spiritual sense. The next second, his vision suddenly widened, revealing an underground cavern. Beneath it all, a seething, simmering red magma. Huge bubbles of fire rose and exploded, and tongues and pillars of flame erupted from the cracks, eventually transforming into streams that merged into the sea of fire below. Is this a lava river? Zhao Sheng quietly peeked out from the crevice. Below, he saw the thick lava slowly flowing along its course, curving from one crevice into another, or branching into more channels. Ultimately, gravity pulled the lava river deeper into the earth. Scanning the caverns, Zhou Ying's figure was easily spotted. Standing at the edge of the lava river, he stared at it motionless, as if in trouble. Zhao Sheng's gaze shifted, and he immediately spotted the object of his embarrassment. The creature in the river stood out rather conspicuously, its pitch-black form bobbing in the fiery red lava, occasionally twitching, a sign of life. Perhaps because Zhao Ying's had been watching it for so long, the creature was highly sensitive. It suddenly twisted and rose, revealing a massive, flat, and thick head. In the next instant, 3 pairs of molten gold eyes opened simultaneously, 6 beams of golden light beaming out of their sockets for over a foot, staring directly at Zhao Ying's. The scene was truly stunning, and Zhao Ying's visibly stiffened. Molten gold frog, Zhao Sheng was startled, a name suddenly popping into his mind. Once the creature fully emerged from the lava, Zhao Sheng was able to see its full form. It reared up its massive body, roughly 10 feet tall, its body covered in dark golden scales. Scalding magma flowed from the cracks between its scales, yet the powerful monster remained oblivious. Zhao Ying's, wary, immediately stepped back, adopting a defensive stance. Previously, the molten gold frog, despite its strength, had been no match for him. But now, not only was he severely wounded, but his most valuable spiritual weapons and talismans were gone, leaving him with less than half his usual strength. On the lava river, the molten gold frog, enraged by the interruption of its slumber, hissed and snarled, its 3 pairs of golden eyes dilating sharply. A blinding golden light suddenly illuminated the dim cavern. Zhao Ying's muttered a curse and retreated abruptly. A moment too late, 6 beams of golden light, each as thick as an arm, pierced his position, creating 6 bottomless holes. The edges were a crimson red, and molten lava dripped into the holes. 6 beams of golden light emanated from the molten gold frog's pupils. Its core temperature was several orders of magnitude higher than magma, comparable to a high-energy laser and incredibly powerful. Struck by this golden light, ordinary defensive spiritual weapons were like paper, completely useless. Having missed its target, the molten gold frog became visibly agitated. It flapped its wings twice in the lava river, croaking loudly. It wanted to pounce, but hesitated, ultimately sending out another burst of golden light. As expected, this time, it missed. Zhao Sheng observed this, a thought in his mind. The molten gold frog was clearly not a good-tempered creature, but despite Zhao Ying's repeated provocations, it remained hunkered down in the lava river, preferring to roar and spit furiously rather than leave the area. By then, Zhao Sheng had already determined that something must be hidden beneath the molten gold frog's feet. With this discovery, Zhao Sheng also noticed that Zhao Ying's gaze remained fixed on the monster's feet throughout their struggle. The man and the monster engaged for a long time, and by then, Zhao Ying's had mastered the molten gold frog's 3 main tactics. So, after dodging a golden attack, Zhao Ying's chanted a spell and suddenly raised his hands upward. 2 whirlpools suddenly formed on either side of the molten gold frog's body, as if stirred by an invisible hand. Finally, they suddenly exploded upward, and fiery red magma shot up into the sky, bringing with it a scorching vortex. Chapter 152, God-destroying soul-eroding true fire. In a flash, the magma took shape, sprouting a head and 2 arms, vaguely resembling a giant. Its lower body, still entwined with the magma, stood about 2 feet tall. Instinctively, the molten golden frog was wary of the 2 magma giants. It opened its maw, and a thick stream of high-temperature fire erupted, engulfing one giant. Remember, there were 2 magma giants. Instantly, the intact giant pounced on the molten golden frog. Its 2 arms, swirling with magma, tightened around the monster's mouth. Its head and chest transformed into a thick, sticky substance, covering the molten golden frog's 6 golden pupils. The suddenness of the situation prevented the molten golden frog from reacting, and it was engulfed in the magma. No, it was engulfed. Meanwhile, more magma giants rose from the magma river beneath its feet. Undeterred, they pounced on the molten golden frog one after another, forming a small mountain in a matter of seconds. This alone would only temporarily trap the molten golden frog, but would not kill it at all. Zhao Ying's needed just that little time. He chanted an incantation as a 3-inch long, needle-thin bone spur suddenly appeared on his hand, a pale flame ablaze on it. When the prajna tribulation arrives, the 5 yins flourish, and the 3 poisons burn. Zhao Ying's let out a low roar, and the bone spur flew out like lightning, transforming into a streak of white light that instantly vanished into the volcano. A sharp frog cry echoed, and the volcanic lava suddenly exploded, revealing a massive, struggling body within the magma. A fist-sized hole suddenly appeared on the molten gold frog's forehead, and red and white brain matter splattered out. A pale flame, centered in the hole, rapidly spread across the molten gold frog's body. The powerful monster appeared in agony, its golden pupils blazing with molten gold, like fireworks or the final pyrotechnics of death. It opened its mouth wide, wanting to scream, but in that instant, its entire body seemed paralyzed, leaving it in a state of raised, open mouth. Its golden pupils instantly dulled, and its body, unable to maintain its balance on the lava river, tumbled sideways, plunging into the magma. Zhao Sheng gasped at this sight. What a powerful bone spur! A single blow had shattered a second-tier demon beast, comparable to a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator, for even a moment. Fortunately, he hadn't acted rashly, or the consequences would have been unpredictable. Elsewhere, Zhao Ying's face flashed a pale green. After taking 2 breaths, he walked to the lava river, extended his hands, aimed at the surface, and pressed and lifted them. The lava river roared, scorching hot lava surging and splattering, and then 2 objects slowly rose to the surface. One was the body of the molten gold frog. Another object, square and crimson, was ablaze with lava flowing from its surface. It was hard to see clearly for a moment, but the fact that it could maintain its shape amidst the scorching heat meant it couldn't be ordinary. Zhao Ying, beaming with joy, leaned forward again, and with both hands, he quickly pulled both objects to the shore. Only then did Zhao Sheng see that the object was a half-man tall, square, crimson metal box. Its surface was smooth and seamless, like a single solid block. Seeing this, Zhao Sheng was in a dilemma. He had 2 choices. One was to act immediately, whether by surprise or force, to prevent Zhao Ying from reaching the treasure within. The reason was self-explanatory. The other was to wait and see until the right opportunity presented itself, then strike with a devastating blow. Ksuo. After a brief hesitation, a sudden voice echoed in Zhao Sheng's ears. He was stunned, and before he could even grasp the source of the sound, he saw Zhao Ying, somehow, instantly lift the lid of the metal box. At that moment, a streak of red light suddenly burst from the metal box and soared into the air. As soon as it appeared, the red light rapidly expanded in all directions, filling the entire world in an instant. Oh no, Zhao Sheng's thoughts had barely left his mind when a blanket of red light enveloped his vision. He was about to retreat when a sharp pain, like a burning sensation, hit his head. With a muffled groan, Zhao Sheng instantly channeled his profound water spiritual energy throughout his body, sweeping through the 6 yang leaders. Only then did he feel better. But this was only a temporary solution. When Zhao Sheng's mind gazed into his purple mansion, he gasped. The boundless soul sea seemed to have been doused in kerosene, igniting with a fiery blaze. A layer of crimson flames appeared on the surface. Simultaneously, his spiritual consciousness was rapidly depleting at an abnormal rate, as if it were being used as fuel. Seeing this horrifying scene, Zhao Sheng was utterly horrified, instantly recalling a terrifying sect, Earth Flame Palace, the god-destroying, soul-eating true fire. The god-destroying, soul-eating true fire was the Earth Flame Palace's signature weapon. Unlike other true fires, it lacked the scorching, explosive properties of traditional spiritual fires. Rather than being considered a true fire of heaven and earth, it was more a form of divine light. It burned the soul without burning the flesh, destroying it without contact, possessing the characteristic of seeing, stricken. Unless one possessed specialized protection against the soul, there was no way to escape the attack of the god-destroying, soul-eating true fire. At this moment, Zhao Sheng suddenly realized that Zhou Zile, the Zhou family's ancestor, had come from the Earth Flame Palace, so it was no surprise that he could intercept a wisp of the god-destroying true fire. Who could have imagined that Zhou Zile would use such a strange device as a protective measure? It was truly impossible to defend against it. And so, Zhao Sheng, unlucky enough, fell victim to it. Damn, so insidious. Just as this thought left his mind, a sharp howl erupted, followed by an invisible shockwave that pierced the earth and rock, shooting towards Zhao Sheng's chest. Oh no! I've been discovered, he growled, enduring the burning pain in his soul as his entire spiritual energy emanated from his body, expanding into a dense, flawless, transparent wall of water. This water wall was the protective spell he had refined from refining the one-element heavy water, the Zuinian water wall. Due to the density and toughness of the one-element heavy water, it was Zhao Sheng's most proficient defensive technique. The next moment, the shockwave struck. The shockwave collided with the water wall, sending invisible waves spreading. Zhao Sheng's body trembled, his purple mansion shook violently, and a mouthful of blood rose to his throat. For a moment, Zhao Sheng's soul was in turmoil. Fortunately, He had mastered the Zuinun water wall to the point of instinctive perfection, automatically regulating his spiritual energy. Even with his mind in turmoil, his spiritual energy flowed smoothly. Otherwise, he would have been seriously injured. Now that he's exposed, there's no point in hiding any longer. Zhao Sheng stretched a layer of water around him, exited the passage, and entered the cave. "It's you, Zhou Yings," who was on high alert by the lava river, suddenly saw Zhao Sheng and his hair and beard stood on end. He shouted in disbelief, "Damn it! You are actually a spy sent by the Mo family. I hate you so much." In that instant, he suddenly understood many doubts and understood many things. Chapter 153 The Final Battle. Zhao Sheng wiped the blood from his nose with his hand and sneered, "Haha, there's so much you haven't thought of." At this moment, Zhao Sheng's soul was damaged, causing blood to flow from all 7 orifices. Blood seeping from his pupils, everything in his vision was shrouded in a thick, bloody hue. "Damn you, you traitor!" Zhou Yings, overcome with rage at the thought of his family, 1,000 years old, being destroyed in a single day because of this man, instantly lost his mind. "Give me your life." Before he could finish his words, a blazing white spiritual flame suddenly erupted from his Danshan, soaring into the air and expanding 100-fold in size, twisting and transforming into a flaming sword over 2 feet long. In a flash, it crossed over 20 feet and slashed down at Zhao Sheng's head. Before the sword even reached him, the scorching heat had already warped the air, causing it to violently collide with the Zuinun water wall, emitting a sizzling sound. Zhao Sheng, intent on summoning the spirit fire gourd, felt a sharp pain in his head. The god-slaying true fire on the soul sea within his purple mansion suddenly surged higher, burning even more fiercely. Just a moment too late. The flaming blade slammed into the Zuinun water wall, causing it to explode. Instantly, flames erupted, steam rose, heat, explosions, and the sheer force of gravity all combined. With a snap, the water wall, unable to withstand the pressure, shattered with a resounding explosion. Simultaneously, an inch-long flaming blade, condensed from fire, appeared without warning at Zhao Sheng's forehead and lunged forward. Crisis loomed. How could this be? In this critical moment, it was as if someone had frozen the world, suddenly slowing down countless times. Zhao Sheng could clearly see the blade, formed from spiritual fire, inch by inch, cutting through the air and approaching him, its tip nearly piercing his forehead. However, this moment was as far away as a divine witness. In this strange state, Zhao Sheng's reaction speed was immeasurably faster. With a simple tilt of his head, he easily dodged the fatal blow. A split second later, Zhao Sheng's mind relaxed, and the world returned to normal. Whoosh! The knife's strike missed, piercing the earth and rock behind Zhao Sheng. The earth and rock instantly exploded, creating a crater over 2 meters in diameter and nearly a meter deep. Wisps of blazing white flames burned continuously on the earth and rock inside and outside the crater. Zhou Yings frowned, seeing his fatal strike miss. He then slapped the treasure chest beside him. A crystal red orb the size of a longan suddenly leaped into the air. The next moment, a ball of crimson flames suddenly ignited from its surface. The flames rapidly expanded, swelling into a massive fireball the size of a house. The fireball's presence raised the already parched and scorching temperature of the cavern by another dozen degrees, making the heat even more unbearable. Go! With a shout, the massive fireball shot out, like a meteor. Meanwhile, Zhao Sheng's eyes blazed even brighter as he faced the oncoming fireball. He didn't even try to dodge, as if stunned by fear. However, the moment the fireball struck him, Zhao Sheng vanished instantly. When he reappeared, he was 3 meters away, bleeding from all 7 orifices for unknown reasons. But Zhao Sheng paid no mind. After dodging the fireball, he leaped directly at Zhou Yings, seemingly intent on a close-quarters encounter. Zhou Yings sneered at this, and with a thought, the flaming orb suddenly swerved, whistling towards the back of Zhao Sheng's head. But Zhao Sheng seemed to have grown an eye in the back of his head, and his body vanished in a flash, as fast as teleportation. In a flash, he not only easily dodged the orb's attack, but also crossed the 3 meters distance. With a distance now less than 5 meters, Zhou Yings panicked. He hadn't expected someone to react so quickly, leaving him no time to activate his talisman. The next moment, Zhou Yings quickly reached for the storage bag at his waist, revealing a handful of talismans. Then, without hesitation, he poured his spiritual energy into the talismans, activating them all. In an instant, half the cave erupted in flames. Hundreds of firebirds and flaming swords danced in formation, filling the air with clouds and rain of fire. Massive, majestic fire dragons swooped down and swirled. Such a massive attack would have been impossible for a mere Foundation establishment cultivator to dodge, let alone block. But in Zhao Sheng's eyes, it was riddled with flaws. He stretched out a wall of profound water, and as the world slowed to a crawl, Zhao Sheng found a crack in his spell and easily escaped. Amidst a resounding explosion, the two men were less than 2 meters apart. This distance was enough. Zhao Sheng's eyes glowed with blood, and the essence in blood stored in his heart suddenly shattered, transforming into streaks of blood that rushed into the purple palace between his eyebrows. Like spring dew after rain, the blood dripped into his soul sea, and in an instant, the rage of the god-slaying true fire waned, leaving only a thin layer clinging to the surface. His consciousness and spirit instantly recovered to peak strength, but at the cost of 100 drops of essence in blood accumulated over 6 months, vanishing into thin air. Bullet time began, and the crystal invisible sword unleashed. At this moment, Zhao Sheng's mind was incredibly focused, his spirit clear and flawless. The world was unprecedentedly quiet. The dust in the air, the flames, the panic on the enemy's face, all emerged from the depths of his soul with remarkable clarity. In this strange state, Zhao Sheng felt a strange sense of conflict. On one hand, he felt the crystal invisible sword was slow, so slow that he could easily catch the blade. But his true consciousness told him that the crystal invisible sword was extremely fast, at least 3 times faster than normal. The contrast between the two feelings was so stark that even though Zhao Sheng had possessed this gift for over 100 years, he still hadn't fully adapted to it. He felt a constant sense of mental distortion, a torn and distorted feeling. Fortunately, this mental distortion didn't affect the effectiveness of his attacks at all. In bullet time, Zhao Sheng had plenty of time, enough to fully appreciate the panic that gradually spread across Zhou Ying's face, and enough to watch the crystal invisible sword easily penetrate a barrier of invisible light. Then, with a single thrust, it pierced the enemy's head, the blade blasting out from behind, carrying away a large amount of pink and white brain matter. As brain matter splattered everywhere, Zhao Sheng's spirits lightened, and the flow of time suddenly returned to normal. Puff, watching Zhou Ying's collapse. He finally managed to spit out a mouthful of blood. Blood oozed from his mouth and nose, his eyes, his ears, and even the pores of his hair. Despite the horrific sight, Zhao Sheng remained surprisingly resilient. After 500 years and 2 lifetimes, he had finally avenged the destruction of his family and the dispersal of his children. Finally, it's over. It's over, so good. At that moment, Zhao Sheng let out a long breath, his spirit incomparably relaxed. Even the burning pain of his soul seemed to ease considerably. After a moment's pause, Zhao Sheng composed himself and walked over to collect the bodies of Zhou Ying's and the molten gold frog into his storage bag. Then, without even a glance, he simply closed the treasure chest lid and put it away. He was nearly dead. How could he have the heart to look at this? After finally retrieving the flame orb, Zhao Sheng gazed into his purple palace, sensing the soul-destroying, soul-eating true fire on the soul sea beginning to burn fiercely again. Gradually, a wry smile crept across Zhao Sheng's face. He couldn't die just yet, at least until he'd completed his final retreat. While the soul-destroying true fire was unstoppable, he was fortunately able to temporarily replenish his depleted energy by constantly transforming his essence in blood. It might be a temporary solution, and it wouldn't last long, but for Zhao Sheng, it was enough. Chapter 154 The Fifth World. Name, Zhao Sheng. Lifespan 131/139. Realm, Foundation Establishment. Level 7. Occupation, 2nd rank. Talisman Master. Constitution, 4. Spiritual roots, yellow rank. Elementary self-healing, mortal rank. Talents, spiritual smell, yellow rank. Bullet time, yellow rank. Hands of stone, mortal rank. Cultivation techniques, mysterious origin. Heavy water art, fragments of the Blood Soul Sutra, talisman overlay technique, resurrection technique, fire sacrifice technique. Spells, God-slaying sword intent, blood escape technique, water mine technique, and 37 other types. Talismans, invisibility talisman, soul-containing talisman, illusion talisman, phantom escape talisman, and 178 other types. The fourth life ends, calculating. From nothingness came chaos, and from chaos came darkness. Amidst the boundless darkness, a jade book radiating endless light suddenly emerged from the unknown void. The book automatically opened to the 4th page, and a figure emerged from within. The figure quickly transformed from intangible to concrete, ultimately transforming into a living young man. Zhao Sheng opened his eyes and gazed upon the ever-changing memories on the pages, his expression complex. When the final scene froze, the 100+ years of love, hatred, and vengeance from his 4th life were suddenly ripped away by the 100 Lifetimes book. Instantly, Zhao Sheng felt a sense of relief, a renewed sense of well-being, his mind becoming profoundly relaxed. At the same moment, a familiar voice suddenly rang from deep within his heart. Calculation complete. Final evaluation of the 4th life, BA. Evaluation reward, 3 yellow-level inheritance privileges, 1 high-level privilege can be split into 3 lower-level privileges. You can choose from constitution, skills, talents, and occupation. Please select. Zhao Sheng was slightly surprised to hear this. This time, there was an additional option for inheritance of occupation. It seemed the 100 Lifetimes book was keeping up with the times. As for what to inherit? After a brief pause, Zhao Sheng said, inherit the 4 spiritual roots constitution, bullet time talent, and the 2nd level talisman master occupation, inheriting, constitution, talents, and occupation inherited, ling. After a clear sound like a bell, the voice came from the bottom of the heart. Congratulations on achieving 5 life achievements. The achievements are as follows. 1. Family revival, ordinary level. 2. Success in foundation building, yellow level. 3. Promotion to 2nd level talisman master, yellow level. 4. Family promotion to spirit being family, yellow level. 5. Destroy the golden core enemy, Zhuan level. Achievement rewards, 1 Zhuan, 3 Wang, and 1 ordinary, a total of 5 random rewards. Hint, high-level rewards can be split into 3 low-level rewards. You can draw from physique, skills, talents, and professions, and can also replace them to increase ability level. Please choose. Zhao Sheng felt a chill in his heart when he heard that the statistics would be made after the completion. In his 4th life, he thought he had done many great things, and thought that he would be able to achieve at least 80 or 90 achievements. Who knew that the Book of 100 Worlds was too stingy and only gave 5 achievements in total? What's more infuriating is that destroying the Zhou family is only a Zhuan level achievement. Does it mean that one must destroy the world to achieve a higher achievement? This is too difficult for Zhao. Thinking of this, Zhao Sheng's heart ached slightly, and he felt that his future life would become more and more difficult. It's really too hard for me. After a sigh, Zhao Sheng regained his spirit and began to calculate carefully. He first tried to use the yellow level rewards to improve his spiritual roots and physique. As expected, he failed. Use the Zhuan level rewards to improve the spiritual roots and physique. After saying this, Zhao Sheng was very nervous. He very much hoped that there would be a water spiritual root among the spiritual roots, so as not to waste the cultivation experience of the 4th life. Fortunately, he is not an unlucky person, and the Book of 100 Worlds is not that bad. Congratulations on the spiritual root promotion. The physique has been promoted to water, gold, and fire spiritual roots. Good. Zhao Sheng's face was filled with joy, and he couldn't help but cheer. This most important item was done, and he immediately felt relaxed. The next step was the popular random drawing. Let's do a mortal level talent drawing first to test the waters. Drawing mortal level talents. In an instant, countless white balls of light appeared and disappeared on the 5th page. Soon, one of the balls of light expanded rapidly, burst open, and scattered into countless points of light. Congratulations to the host for drawing the mortal level talent Iron Will. Zhao Sheng was a little disappointed to see that it was Iron Will, and felt that this talent was really useless. Never mind, the big deal is 3 yellow level drawings anyway. Zhao Sheng said in a deep voice, choose to draw yellow level talent and a yellow level physique first. Yellow level talents and constitutions are being drawn. Congratulations on drawing the yellow level talent Danger Perception. Congratulations on drawing the yellow level constitution Elder Bloodline. Incomplete. At this moment, 2 pieces of information flooded into Zhao Sheng's mind. Danger Perception. Your innate spiritual awareness is different from that of ordinary people, and you can sense dangers in the dark. Elf Bloodline. Incomplete. Part of the bloodline of the ancient elder has awakened in your body. Remember, it is a blessing, not a curse. After reading the 2 pieces of information, Zhao Sheng suddenly became interested. He wanted to know the specific performance of these 2 abilities. Could they be comparable to the bullet time talent? Oh, right, There was still one yellow level random reward left. At this time, Zhao Sheng didn't want to draw randomly, but chose to improve the Iron Will talent. Talent Iron Will is being promoted. Woo woo woo. A heavy and huge horn sound seemed to come from the distant sky, and then became deafening. Zhao Sheng suddenly woke up from his sleep and sat up abruptly. Just as he could see clearly that he was in front of a narrow, dimly lit cabin, the cabin suddenly shook violently, almost 90 degrees, and Zhao Sheng was instantly thrown out, his head smashing straight into the bulkhead. Be careful. Wu Fang's face changed drastically upon seeing this, and he shouted hurriedly. Seeing that a tragedy was inevitable, Wu Fang's expression was filled with pity. However, at this moment, his eyes suddenly widened. After being thrown into the air, a large amount of clear water suddenly appeared out of thin air around Zhao Sheng's body. The clear water instantly condensed into a large water ball, firmly protecting him in the middle. Pa! After hitting the bulkhead, the water ball bounced off easily. Zhao Sheng landed easily on the ground, then waved his hand to disperse the water ball. Splash! The clear water exploded and flowed all over the cabin. This, Wu Fang was stunned. After stuttering a few times, he said in shock, Dingshan, you can actually cast spells instantly, Brother Wu, practice makes perfect. I've been practicing this water condensation technique since I was 6 years old, without interruption, and it's been 7 years now. Zhao Sheng casually gave an explanation while absorbing the memory. So that's how it is. Wu Fang felt relieved after hearing this. The water condensation technique is only a first-level spell. After nearly 10 years of hard practice, it is very likely that he can reach the level of instantaneous spell casting. No wonder. If it weren't for his bullet time talent, Zhao Sheng might have died before he could even achieve his goal in this life. Wu Fang was curious again and was about to ask again when he suddenly heard Zhao Sheng urging, Brother Wu, the emergency horn has sounded. Let's hurry up and get on board. Yes, that's right. Let's get on deck. Wu Fang woke up as if from a dream, quickly jumped off the hammock, and hurriedly climbed up the ladder barefoot. Zhao Sheng smiled slightly at this and took a step forward to follow. Chapter 155, The Star-Breaking Pirates. While climbing the ladder, Zhao Sheng quickly ascertained the origins of this body. Zhao Dingshan, now 15 years old, was an orphan from Kaiyungan Island. 4 years ago, he discovered he possessed the 3 spiritual roots of water, gold, and fire, and practiced a wave-treading technique. Flipping through this body's memories, Zhao Sheng thought to himself, interesting. From his memories, he discovered that Zhao Dingshan had been discriminated against since childhood due to his unusual physical characteristics. It wasn't until the age of 11, when his spiritual roots became apparent and he was found to have a 3rd spiritual root, that he was accepted into the Zhao clan and given the name Zhao Dingshan, significantly elevating his status. However, due to the belief that those not of our race must have different hearts, Zhao Dingshan, despite being a cultivator with a 3rd spiritual root, remained unwelcome. This was evidenced by many factors, such as his status within the clan, despite possessing a 3rd spiritual root, not even equal to that of a cultivator with a 4th. Furthermore, despite the vastness of the outer space ocean and its countless islands, no immortal cultivation sect was willing to accept him. The most obvious example was that Zhao Dingshan, at only 15, was forced to join the treasure ship as a sailor. This was outrageous. Just as he was thinking this, the ladder reached the end, and Zhao Sheng swung onto the deck. Suddenly, his vision opened up. This long-distance treasure ship was enormous, copper yellow in color, with 2 decks. The lower deck was spacious, nearly 40 zang long and 80 or 90 zang wide. The upper deck, only 1/10 the area, housed vital areas such as the spiritual weapon storage, the captain's cabin, and the rudder room. In the center of the treasure ship stood 3 masts, 1 main and 2 secondary. 3 massive sails whirred, their surface taut and bulging in the sea breeze. Layers of light emanated from the sails, and within this halo, the illusion of a gigantic white whale emerged. Before Zhao Sheng could take a closer look, he was suddenly pushed from behind. He stumbled, stopped, and turned to look. He saw an 8-foot-tall, portly man, as muscular as a brown bear, emerging from the cabin, cursing. Damn! I finally fell asleep, and you woke me up again. Seeing Zhao Sheng looking over, the burly man glared and roared, What are you looking at? 4-eyed little bastard? Watch out, I'll hammer you to death. Zhao Sheng gave him a deep look, and the blue halo around his pupils suddenly shone with a strange brilliance. Just then, a furious shout echoed from the upper deck. "What are you all standing there for? Go to your respective positions." Zhao Sheng turned and, following his memory, quickly walked to the northwest corner of the deck, pointing to Zhengzi. He waited until the other 32 sailors of the treasure ship Dongyang had taken their positions. With a humming sound, the deck seemed to be electrified. The ground instantly lit up with a layer of blue light, and then a complex white light network, incorporating the 8 trigrams and 5 elements, suddenly rose from the deck. A white light circle also rose beneath Zhao Sheng's feet, and in its center, a light symbol representing the character water condensed and connected to the light network. The others followed a similar pattern. At that moment, the Dongyang's captain, Dongyang, strode to the deck and shouted to the sailors below, "Wait a moment, everyone, listen up. After I call out 3, everyone will infuse their spiritual energy together. Do you understand?" "Got it," everyone shouted in unison. Zhao Sheng leaned against the side of the ship and looked out. The sun was at its zenith, the sun shining brightly, and the sea breeze blew gently. On the vast, azure sea, 20 miles from the Dongyang, a massive, pitch-black ship slowly emerged from the water. Seawater poured down its sides, splashing a thick stream of white foam. Aloft on the ship's mainmast hung a black flag depicting a bloody severed hand. Seeing this, Zhao Sheng understood clearly that they had encountered pirates. Furthermore, they were the notorious blood pirates of the outer sea. Their defining characteristic was their use of blood and human body parts, as in this case, the Blood Hand pirates. "Lower the sails," the captain shouted, and the 3 sails of the Dongyang quickly dropped, causing the ship's speed to drop dramatically. "Activate the Spirit Stone Furnace. Ready, 1, 2, 3, start." As soon as he finished speaking, Zhao Sheng pulled out a spirit stone and grasped it. Simultaneously, he activated the Danshan Vortex, channeling spiritual energy through the Yongquan acupoints on his feet and into the deck's spiritual energy network. In an instant, the deck's optical network suddenly grew several times thicker. Streams of red, blue, gold, cyan, and yellow spiritual energy rapidly streamed from various spiritual array nodes to the spirit stone furnace in the hold below. Boom! The Dongyang's hull suddenly shook, and its stern plunged sharply. As the sea breeze lashed against it, the Dongyang, like a stimulant, rushed off into the distance at lightning speed. A whoosh! Vast swathes of seawater were split apart, and waves hurled rapidly behind the ship. Zhao Sheng absorbed the spiritual energy from the spirit stone while continuously infusing it with spiritual energy. The shattered star sea was vast and boundless, dotted with countless islands. Through the life and death struggles of successive human ancestors, islands were carved out, and more of them became populated and flourished. Naturally, shipping was the primary mode of transportation between islands in the vast oceans. Over millennia, thousands of shipping routes formed between the islands of the shattered star sea. Some of these routes, lucrative as they were, became known as the Spirit Stone routes. Naturally, lucrative trade attracted pirates, leading to the rampant piracy of the Spirit Stone routes. Just as those who pursue legitimate interests are protected by cultivators, so too are cultivators often behind pirates. As far as Zhao Sheng knew, the vast majority of pirate groups were backed by demonic cultivators, leading to the Shattered Star Sea pirates being known as the demonic pirates. As for the mastermind behind the Bloodhand demonic pirates, Zhao Sheng briefly recalled the situation and burst into laughter, feeling it was a remarkable coincidence. The power behind the entire Blood Pirates alliance was none other than the once powerful Giyun sect, now known as the Blood Demon sect. But how did the Giyun sect evolve into the Blood Demon sect? Zhao Sheng had no idea. Zhao Lingshan seemed to only remember the Blood God disaster, which occurred over 300 years ago when a sudden catastrophe struck Central Continent, causing widespread unrest. After the turmoil subsided, the Giyun sect became a pariah, driven out of Central Continent and eventually drifting to the Shattered Star Sea, eventually changing their name to the Blood Demon sect. While the specific circumstances were unclear, Zhao Sheng, drawing on his own experience, had a rough idea of how the Giyun sect came to this fate. Attention! A flying boat is pursuing us. If you don't want to become blood slaves, prepare to fight. Captain Dong Gyang's loud shout jolted Zhao Sheng out of his reverie. He looked back, his expression changing. He saw a slender, crimson flying boat, over 3 meters long, rising from the rear and rapidly approaching. The boat was incredibly fast, catching up with the Dongyang in a flash. Kill! At the cry of kill, over 20 blood-stained figures leaped from the flying boat, landing on the deck with a rustling sound, and charging ferociously at the crowd. Duangangju, the only Foundation establishment cultivator on board, was about to attack when he was stopped by a white-haired, red-robed elder wearing a faceless mask. Your opponent is me. The masked elder swung a blood-scorching flying sword, slashing at Duangangju. Duangangju was forced to stop and, using a spiritual weapon, the Nine-Yang spear, intercepted the blood-scorching flying sword. The two Foundation establishment cultivators quickly engaged in a fierce battle. Elsewhere, Zhao Sheng also encountered an enemy, a towering blood bandit, wielding a sword and shield, with a strange cry. Zhao Sheng charged forward. No way. Faced with the enemy, he took flight. What a joke. He was only at the second level of key refining, facing a blood bandit at least at the fourth level. He'd be a fool not to run. It wasn't that he couldn't kill him, but he didn't want to reveal his true strength until absolutely necessary. Thanks to the bug friend, the clown who wants to go to heaven for the 1,500 coin reward. Baimuyi thanks you. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 156, which came first, the chicken or the egg? The battle on the ship quickly intensified, blood and flesh flying everywhere, and shouts of killing shook the air. The tall blood bandit pursued him frantically, but Zhao Sheng's feet seemed to be coated with oil, his steps extremely nimble, darting across the deck. His reaction was astonishing. The ship was in chaos, spells and magical weapons clashed and exploded in the air, and the deck was filled with fighting. However, Zhao Sheng glided like a fish, nimbly slipping between the gaps, occasionally throwing water balls and arrows to hinder the enemy's pursuit, with an air of calmness amidst the turbulent clouds. After a moment, after being nearly stabbed by a blade spear, the tall blood bandit leaped in anger, slamming his sword against his large shield, and shouting, "Hey, you little brat, if you have the guts, stop right there." Zhao Sheng stopped by the side of the ship and looked around. What he saw was a world half yellow, half covered in a glaring red glow, and the two Foundation establishment cultivators were a dark purple. Every time Zhao Sheng's eyes swept over them, his heart beat like a drum, a sense of immense danger welling up within him, as if death were imminent at any moment. He knew it was all due to his danger perception. This yellow-level talent was based on his true combat power, instinctively categorizing the danger level into 5 colors: green, white, yellow, red, and black. Green and white represented safety, yellow indicated potential danger, and red and above indicated extreme danger, requiring evasion. Finally, black signified death. If the enemy attacked, their comrades would surely perish. At this moment, the Duangqiong slowed considerably, and the pirate ship behind them was closing in. He could even clearly see the bloodthirsty, grinning faces on the enemy's bows. On the deck, the two Foundation establishment cultivators were locked in a stalemate, with the Duangqiong clearly losing ground. 3 or 4 sailors lay in a pool of blood, one of them a member of the Zhao clan. I can't wait any longer, Zhao Sheng thought to himself. Just then, a tall blood bandit caught up with him. Kid, I wonder where you'll escape this time. Zhao Sheng raised his head and gave him a faint smile. Goodbye, big fool. With that, he leaped, his body stretching easily over the side of the boat, free falling into the sea. Damn, the tall blood bandit was shocked. How dare this idiot jump into the sea? Is he tired of living? This is an alien sea, thousands of miles away, with no islands and an average depth of over 1,000 feet, teeming with sea beasts. If no ship passed by and rescued him in time, this kid would either die or die horribly, and he wouldn't survive more than a month. With a thud, Zhao Sheng plunged into the sea. The moment his body touched the water, he felt like he'd returned home. His closed pores automatically opened, rapidly secreting an incredibly lubricating mucus. Simultaneously, his black pupils were quickly bathed in a blue halo. As his eyelids opened and closed, his black pupils instantly transformed into a pair of emerald blue eyes, like a pair of dazzling sapphires. Zhao Sheng felt as if he had truly transformed into a fish. No, he was even more agile than any other fish, navigating the ocean with greater freedom. Without making any significant movements, he gently swung his body and instantly leaped a great distance, rapidly diving deeper into the sea. The water was incredibly clear. As he descended, Zhao Sheng saw countless bizarre fish, shrimp, and sea beasts, swimming leisurely, hunting, and curiously circling him. Gazing at these vibrant scenes, Zhao Sheng felt a deep sense of ease and comfort. It was as if he belonged to this ocean. Feeling the constant flow of fresh oxygen seeping through his pores and into his lungs, Zhao Sheng marveled, no wonder, is this the magic of the ancient elves? No, breathing underwater was only the beginning of the magic. He descended at an incredible speed, and in a short while, he had descended over 1,200 feet and successfully reached the seabed. At this depth, the water pressure was immense, too great for a mortal body to withstand. Even ordinary cultivators required the use of pressure-resistant spells to withstand the pressure. However, Zhao Sheng's body underwent a miraculous transformation, adapting instinctively to the high pressure. Furthermore, at a depth of 1,000 feet, light could not penetrate the water, resulting in a murky, nearly impossible sight. Yet, Zhao Sheng could clearly see a 10-foot radius with his bare eyes. This state of affairs filled Zhao Sheng with indescribable amazement. A question suddenly occurred to him. Before his reincarnation, he had enhanced his spiritual roots and absorbed the blood of the elven race. Zhao Dingshan, on the other hand, had possessed an unusual body since birth. This posed the question, had he directly reincarnated through the Book of 100 Worlds? Or had he not possessed a body at all, and it was merely a mystery from the womb? Zhao Sheng was now perplexed. Without him, would Zhao Dingshan still exist in this world's timeline? This question, like the chicken and egg puzzle, might never be fully answered. With this eternal dilemma in mind, Zhao Sheng dug a makeshift cave beneath the sea, and retreated within to begin his retreat. Taking advantage of the pirate hijack, Zhao Sheng seized the opportunity to escape the Zhao family, avoiding the awkward task of explaining his rapid advancement. His first step was to switch cultivation techniques. The wave-treading technique not only sounded inferior, but was actually even worse. Without hesitation, he immediately switched to the Jinden level technique, the Zuanin heavy water art. Drawing on his past life experience, Zhao Sheng successfully switched his technique's path in just 2 days, re-establishing a new spiritual energy vortex. Compared to those with 4 spiritual roots, those with 3 spiritual roots saw their cultivation speed increase by at least a quarter. Zhao Sheng simply loved the sensation of flying, eager to continue his arduous practice until he reached the foundation establishment stage. However, his daunting reality prevented him from doing so. Searching his entire storage bag, Zhao Sheng's only thought remained, whoa. This is awful. He possessed only 19 low-grade spirit stones, 8 half-bottles of water spirit pills, and a pile of tattered demon skins and bones. He only had one magical weapon, a low-grade, commonplace water-dividing thorn. This little possession wasn't even enough for a casual cultivator. Half a month later, in the temporary cave, Zhao Sheng ceased practicing his cultivation technique, and the vortex of spiritual energy in his Ganshin subsided. Then, with a crackling sound, the last spiritual stone in his hand suddenly disintegrated into a pile of powder. Zhao Sheng frowned at the sight, then, with a thought, summoned his personal data panel, name, Zhao Dingshan, Zhao Sheng, lifespan, 15/149 realm, key refining level 3 occupation, 2nd rank talisman master constitution, water, metal, and fire spiritual roots, spiritual bloodline, residual, talents, bullet time, danger sense, absolute rationality, skills, technique, Zuanin heavy water art, proficient, spells, water condensation, water arrow, refraction talismans, water arrow talisman, water shield talisman, invisibility talisman, blood melting talisman, gray, soul condensing talisman, gray, phantom escape talisman, gray, and 176 other types. Looking at his personal data, Zhao Sheng relaxed his brow, an unconscious smile spreading across his face. He had advanced to the 3rd level of key refining. Chapter 157, Distribution of the Broken Star Sea and the Current Situation of the Zhao Family. Looking at the lifespan column, Zhao Sheng's smile deepened. The elder bloodline was truly miraculous. A lifespan of 149 years easily crushed that of ordinary humans. And that was just a fragmented bloodline. A pure-blooded elder, whose lifespan was who knows how many more years, could easily exceed 300 years, rivaling a foundation establishment cultivator. Truly a race blessed by nature. Zhao Sheng sighed, then turned his gaze to his gift, absolute rationality, temporarily blocks out emotions and desires, viewing everything in the world with transcendental rationality and handling all matters with absolute rationality. The price is the gradual loss of emotions and desires. The absolute rationality gift was truly bizarre. Zhao Sheng had tried it once before, and it felt as if he had transformed into an advanced artificial intelligence, experiencing neither joy nor sorrow, neither love nor hate. His thinking, memory, logical reasoning, and other abilities were instantly and dramatically enhanced, giving him a constant feeling of fearlessness, omnipotence, and transcendence. Absolute rationality, terrifying, yet exhilarating, and highly addictive. But the price was even more terrifying. After trying it once, Zhao Sheng decided not to use it again unless absolutely necessary. Zhao Sheng glanced down and saw a large gray area in the talisman section. Gray represented a seal, implying that with his current level of cultivation, it was difficult to draw such a talisman. Zhao Sheng counted and found that there were only 24 first-level talismans that could be drawn. The most valuable of these was the invisibility talisman, while the others were more than adequate. He closed the data panel and pondered for a moment. Like a fish, he emerged from the cave and swam toward the surface. A day later, sunlight streamed down the ocean. A howling sea breeze whipped up waves, shimmering the surface. A dark figure suddenly appeared in the distance above the boundless azure sea. It sped forward at breakneck speed, breaking through countless waves and causing the water behind it to part, creating a mass of white foam that resembled a single white line from afar. Suddenly, the white line snapped, and the shadow instantly grew larger. A massive, slender white flag swordfish leaped from the water, gliding as if to fly a full 10 feet before re-emerging into the sea. Ah, do it again. Zhao Sheng rode atop the swordfish, braving the piercing sea breeze with an expression of immense excitement. He patted the swordfish's smooth forehead, and the giant, remarkably agile, swung its tail vigorously, harnessing the power of the seawater to leap high out of the water once again, soaring forward at a rapid speed. The swordfish's speed was as swift as a galloping horse on land. In just half an hour, man and fish had covered over 100 miles, a perfect aid for travel. Without a nautical chart, Zhao Sheng had no idea where he was, but could only roughly estimate that he was on a channel in the outer Star Sea. The Shattered Star Sea was immensely vast, and no one knew its exact extent. Immortal cultivators categorized the Shattered Star Sea into the Inner Star Sea, the Outer Star Sea, the Pelagic Ocean, and the Unknown Sea, based on the range of human activity. The Inner and Outer Star Seas together form the Broken Star Sea in a narrow sense. The Inner Star Sea, because it was first developed, boasts the largest islands, and generally boasts a higher concentration of spiritual energy than the Outer Star Sea. Therefore, it is the most prosperous region, home to the largest number of humans, and a battleground for sects and immortal families. The Inner Star Sea is roughly circular, centered on the star Algae Sea. The outermost island chain, the first defense island chain, is centered around the 36 constellations island. The vast area extending from the first island chain to the second defense island chain is known as the Outer Star Sea, home to countless islands. The second defense island chain, centered around Dragon Head Island, encompasses Dragon Horn, Dragon Claw 9, and Dragon Scale, totaling 108 secondary spiritual islands. Among them, Kyungit Island, where the Zhao family resides, is a Dragon Scale class spiritual island. The second island chain is crucial, shouldering the heavy responsibility of defending against attacks from distant demon tribes. Whenever the demon tribe launches a sea monster tide, it must withstand the initial fierce attacks, resulting in heavy casualties. Whenever Zhao Sheng considers the current state of the Zhao family, he cannot help but recall the saying, "Born in adversity, die in comfort." He had never imagined that the second branch, once hopeless and hopeless, would rebound from the brink of extinction, staging a remarkable show of united effort and striving for strength. Back then, the second branch had hastily relocated to the Shattered Star Sea, unfamiliar with the area and lacking even a foundation. Ultimately, they were relegated to a remote island in the Outer Star Sea. Aside from their spiritual veins, everything else had to be rebuilt from scratch. Those early years were utterly difficult, and they were repeatedly on the brink of extinction. At this critical juncture, the second branch emerged as a formidable figure, Zhao Zuanji. Possessing 3 spiritual roots, he possessed both intelligence and courage. He first successfully entered the Xianyang Sword sect and later became a disciple of a cultivator at the 9th level of the foundation building stage. At the young age of 44, he achieved foundation building success. He then led the Zhao family to a firm foothold, and their influence grew exponentially. A century later, Zhao Zuanji, having reached the late stage of foundation building, finally, after decades of planning, seized ownership of Kaiyungan Island from a declining clan, becoming one of the top 100 immortal cultivation families in the Outer Star Sea. Unfortunately, even such a formidable figure could not overcome the tribulation of forming a core, ultimately passing away on Kaiyungan Island over 50 years ago. Today, over 50 years later, the Kaiyunga Zhao clan boasts 4 foundation-building cultivators and over 100 key refining members. 5 generations of direct descendants number over 300,000. Clan members older than 5 generations are not only found on Kaiyunga Island, but also spread across numerous islands in the Outer Star Sea, with a few branches even migrating to the Inner Star Sea. While Zhao Sheng was lost in thought, the swordfish carried him across over 200 miles. As the setting sun shone on his face, a black dot suddenly appeared on the sea. Zhao Sheng caught sight of the black dot out of the corner of his eye, startled awake. He twisted the swordfish's head, and with a flick of its tail, it reversed course and swam rapidly towards the black dot. Moments later, the black dot grew larger, gradually taking on the shape of a 3-masted ship, no smaller than the Donkyuan. Zhao Sheng rose and stood on the swordfish's back, his eyes narrowed. By now, he could clearly see that 3 massive, dazzling dragon-shooting crossbows towered majestically from the bow and sides of the ship. These were 30% larger than the ones he had deployed in Rotten Peach Mountain in his previous life. Runes shone on the black iron crossbow bolts on the racks, each as thick as a thigh and easily exceeding 16 feet in length. Seeing this, Zhao Sheng felt a surge of ill will towards the ship. With a surge of ill will, his sense of danger was instantly activated. In an instant, the 3-masted ship was suddenly shrouded in a blanket of black. Red and yellow lights flashed from all over the ship, and on the second deck, 2 thick black auras swirled endlessly. Zhao Sheng's heart skipped a beat, and a sense of extreme danger suddenly overwhelmed him. He was about to retreat. However, before he could react, a figure suddenly leaped from the bow deck and hurtled towards him. A few breaths later, a bald, mountain-like giant with a crimson beard appeared, clambering down upon him from above, a massive trident at his feet. "Boy, where's your boat? Did it sink?" The giant's voice roared like thunder and a lion's roar, making his ears ring. Zhao Sheng resisted the urge to scratch his ears and offered the giant a sincere smile. "Senior, I was attacked by demonic bandits a while ago, but I narrowly escaped. After wandering for several days, I finally drifted here. Well, I'm only at the 3rd level of key refining, so it's okay. Come aboard." Without giving Zhao Sheng any time to object, the giant waved his hand and unleashed a black iron chain as thick as his wrist. It flew out like a snake, wrapping itself around Zhao Sheng's body. Then, using the chain, he easily pulled Zhao Sheng out of the sea and onto the massive ship. Crash! The chains were retracted. Zhao Sheng stood on the deck, stretched his arms, turned his head to look at the group of shirtless men approaching him, and a sincere smile appeared on his face again. "Hello everyone, my name is Zhao Sheng." Chapter 158 Setting up a scheme to earn spirit stones. The game's on. Bet on how long Zhao Sheng can last this time? Under 5 breaths, 3-1. Over 5 breaths, over 30 breaths, 10-1. If Li Tao loses, the dealer takes it all. Place your bets. On the deck of the Dafu, following a loud shout from the cabin boy, Chen Laor, a group of bored sailors immediately gathered and shouted, "I'm betting 30 spirit stones on Zhao Sheng not lasting 5 breaths. Bah, have you forgotten our lesson from last time? I'll bet 40, at least 10 breaths, a small bet for fun, 10 for over 30 breaths." Seeing everyone enthusiastically participating, Chen Laor beamed with joy, deftly collecting individual bets and information. A round trip on a distant whaling expedition took at least a year, and with few recreational activities on board, gambling naturally became everyone's way to pass the time in the face of boredom. After everyone had placed their bets, Chen Laor winked at Zhao Sheng, who was leaning against the side of the boat. Zhao Sheng nodded in understanding, stood up straight, stretched, and slowly walked to the center of the deck. He shouted to the second deck, "Kang Tao, come down and fight." As soon as he finished speaking, a slender figure suddenly flew out from the deck and landed gently opposite Zhao Sheng. The figure had a stern face, dressed in a dark, formal outfit. From his shoulder dangled a 3-inch-long jade-white flying sword, its blade gleaming with tiny flashes of lightning. 5 breaths, 2, Li Mu looked at the playful Zhao Sheng, muttering a few words expressionlessly. Suddenly, Two beams of white light flew out of his hands, landing precisely in the arms of Kang Tao Chen Laor. A Kang Tao is a ship's bosun, generally the most skilled fighter besides the captain. Kang Tao Li Mu was a swordsman who had reached the great perfection of key training and was once an outer disciple of the Xianyang sword sect. Chen Laor reached into his chest, his expression changing slightly as he shouted to the crowd, "Li Tao has staked himself 2 mid-grade spirit stones. Who wants to raise the stakes? Time's running out. No more waiting, I'll take it. 8 more spirit stones, me too. 20 spirit stones, even the coffin." Seeing Li Tao's confidence, everyone started to raise their stakes, and Chen Laor bustled about again. After placing their bets, Chen Laor secretly raised 2 fingers to Zhao Sheng, who blinked. "Kang Tao, please show mercy." With that, Zhao Sheng's right hand flickered, revealing a water-dividing spear over a foot long, its tip gleaming with cold light, resembling an iron rod. "Watch out!" As soon as he finished speaking, Li Mu formed a sword gesture, and the Jade Thunder Sword suddenly transformed into a streak of white light, shooting out with lightning speed, piercing Zhao Sheng's shoulder. Zhao Sheng's eyes narrowed, his body frozen in place. But just as the flying sword approached, his shoulder jolted slightly. Whoosh! The Jade Thunder Sword barely grazed his skin, slipping past. Wow! Someone in the crowd, witnessing this thrilling moment, couldn't help but gasp. Li Mu didn't care that the sword missed. He'd clashed with the brat several times before, and if he couldn't even dodge a strike, he'd have given up long ago. The Jade Thunder Sword soared into the sky, tracing a semicircular arc. The midday sun was blazing, and the flying sword suddenly blended with the dazzling sunlight, becoming almost invisible. In an instant, sunlight poured down on Zhao Sheng's face, accompanied by a hidden glint of sword light. Zhao Sheng looked up, his eyes narrowed by the glare. But then, he suddenly raised the water-dividing spear in his hand and thrust it into the blazing sunlight. Ling! With a metallic tremor, Zhao Sheng's figure flashed, retreating 3 feet. Simultaneously, the Jade Thunder Sword was instantly shaken out of the sunlight and flew diagonally away. "Excellent!" everyone couldn't help but exclaim. The sharp-eyed saw Zhao Sheng stab, striking the tip of the flying sword with incredible precision, sending it careening back. Such precision, vision, and reaction speed made it hard to imagine a 15-year-old possessing such abilities. However, reality was even stranger than imagined. While they were talking, the two exchanged 7 or 8 more rounds. Despite Li Mu's lightning-fast sword control, he couldn't hurt Zhao Sheng even a bit. 5 breaths had passed, and Li Mu, feeling anxious, shouted, "Watch out, kid!" Secret sword control technique, split the sword light. The final syllable of the word transform still lingered as the Jade Thunder Sword suddenly erupted with lightning. Its blade flickered and pulsated, instantly splitting into 2, 2 into 4, 4 into 8. 8 beams of sword light suddenly loomed in the air, forming a semicircle around Zhao Sheng. Chop! With the utterance of the word chop, 8 beams of sword light flashed and vanished, reappearing to strike at Zhao Sheng's head, hands, chest, and abdomen, all at his vital points. Seeing the sword light approaching, Zhao Sheng's eyes flashed blue, and he suddenly shrank into a ball, spinning like a top. The water-splitting spear in his hand instantly stabbed out in all directions with lightning speed, making him look like a hedgehog. Ding, ding, ding. With a series of ding-ding explosions, Zhao Sheng suddenly leaped out, gliding along the ground like a fox. At this moment, Li Mu's face suddenly paled. His mental connection with the Jade Thunder Sword had been suddenly severed for a moment, leaving him secretly shocked. Seeing that even the secret technique of sword light splitting could not harm Zhao Sheng, Li Mu, in desperation, forgot his restraint and suddenly increased his spiritual power by 30%. The Jade Thunder Sword, as if it had absorbed the tonic, suddenly surged with sword light, its speed increasing by 3 times. It chased Zhao Sheng with a burst of stabbing. Slow down, slow down. Kang Tao, you're breaking the rules." Zhao Sheng rolled over, awkwardly dodging the flying sword's attack. He hurriedly shook his hands, crying for mercy with a look of indignation. Li Mu was stunned by this, remembering that in his haste he had forgotten to suppress his cultivation. A flicker of embarrassment crossed his face, and with a flick of his hand, the Jade Thunder Sword flew back to his shoulder. He then said in a deep voice, "You win this time." With that, Li Mu regained his cool demeanor, leaped onto the second deck, and slipped into the training room. "Oh my! Li is ripping us off, damn, the dealer is taking all the wins. This is outrageous, Did Li and Chen collude? Get lost. Do you think Li is as despicable as you? Li Mu's admission of defeat was met with outrage from everyone, except Chen Lauer, who beamed. Undoubtedly, he had won big this time. Of course, Zhao Sheng also had a share of the bet. If Zhao Sheng hadn't been so strapped for cash, he wouldn't have been willing to cooperate with Chen Lauer and play the game. However, the spiritual energy in this ocean was so thin, almost like a spiritual desert. Without spirit stones, Zhao Sheng could hardly cultivate. To quickly improve his cultivation, he had to expose some of his strength. Of course, this also had other advantages. Although his cultivation level was only at the 3rd level of key refining, no one on the Dafu dared to look down on him. Everyone understood that a 15-year-old cultivator at the 3rd level of key refining could, if nothing unexpected happened, reach the foundation building stage. If he also possessed strength far exceeding that of his peers, his chances of becoming a foundation building cultivator would be more than 50%, if not a sure thing. Therefore, after Zhao Sheng was rescued aboard the Dafu, he was quickly accepted by everyone and held a high position. The way of heaven is balanced, there are good and bad. Zhao Sheng was on the Dafu, and although he was not in control of his own situation, he was facing great troubles. Coming out of Chen Lauer's cabin at the head of the ship, Zhao Sheng, who had received nearly 300 spirit stones, was about to climb the ladder, but a figure in a short skirt came down from above, with 2 plump buttocks facing him. Zhao Sheng looked up, and it seemed as if he had accidentally seen something he shouldn't have seen from under the short skirt. Snap! A slap landed on Zhao Sheng's shoulder, neither light nor heavy. Kid, what did you just see? At this moment, a gentle voice came to Zhao Sheng's ears. Chapter 159 Creditor Highlander. Zhao Sheng looked up and saw a bright and beautiful face before him. The person was tall, with a well-developed bust, and her long, flowing red hair was as bright as a flame, reflecting her owner's personality. Highlander, the daughter of Captain Hai Dafu and Zhao Sheng's creditor. Sister Laner, I said I didn't see anything just now. Do you believe me? Haha, I don't, everything I said is true. Whether you believe it or not, I believe it anyway. Snap. Speak human. Zhao Sheng could have dodged the slap, but to avoid further torture, he chose to endure it obediently. After the beating, Highlander finally vented her anger. After all, she was still a virgin, and there was no way she would let anyone take advantage of her. If Zhao Sheng knew what was going on in Highlander's mind, he'd definitely have something to say. Since you know you're a virgin, yet you still dress so coolly every day and run around the ship? That's just, Hai Dafu doted on his daughter to the point of madness. Because of Highlander, every crew member had experienced the painful torture of the captain. With repeated similar experiences, Highlander became the emperor of the Dafu. The crew treated her like a cat, either flattering her or avoiding her. Seeing Zhao Sheng's quiet demeanor, Highlander curled her lips in dismay. She extended a slender, white hand and said confidently, "This month's interest is due. 200 spirit stones, here." While Zhao Sheng muttered to himself, "This man is so greedy," he swiftly produced 2 mid-grade spirit stones and handed them to Highlander. 3 months ago, after Hai Dafu had rescued Zhao Sheng aboard, he immediately declared that his life-saving grace was undeniable, and then announced that this favor could be repaid with 10,000 spirit stones. At the same time, he considerately lent Zhao Sheng 10,000 spirit stones. The interest, frankly, was a very low 2%. However, there was a catch. Until Zhao Sheng could repay his debt, he had to work aboard the Dafu. Monthly wages were based on his cultivation level, and at the 3rd level of key refining, he only earned 30 spirit stones, barely enough to cover the interest. Faced with his savior, the foundation establishment cultivator Hai Dafu, what could Zhao Sheng do? He felt completely helpless. Even more frustrating, Hai Dafu had actually sent Miss Lan to collect the debt. It was hard to say if this decision was his own. Perhaps the young lady had suddenly taken an interest in the arrival of a new toy, no, a new person, on the ship. Hai Lan happily accepted the spirit stones, patting Zhao Sheng on the shoulder with her free hand and offering a gentle encouragement, "Kid, work hard." With that, she turned and slid gracefully up the ladder, leaving Zhao Sheng with another chance. Zhao Sheng watched the swaying figure disappear, thinking to himself, "Little ghost? Humph, if I told you how old I am, I'd scare you to death." He waited until Highlander disappeared from the ship's ladder before climbing up. A moment later, he crossed the deck and entered the spirit stone cultivation room below the second deck. As an aside, The Shattered Star Sea is quite different from what people imagine. The spiritual energy in this ocean is highly unevenly distributed. Areas rich in spiritual energy, such as the Inner Star Sea, have an average concentration far exceeding that of Central Continent. However, much of the Shattered Star Sea is so thin it's practically non-existent. Effectively a spiritual desert. Cultivating in a spiritual desert is like squeezing milk from sand. The difficulty is unimaginable. Consequently, spiritual cultivation and food cultivation are prevalent in the Shattered Star Sea, and the prevalence of spirit-gathering arrays is far greater than in other realms of the Shiansu realm. The Dafu whaling ship is a second-tier treasure ship equipped with 3 miniature spirit-gathering arrays and a matching spirit-burning array to fully utilize the spiritual energy contained in the spirit stones. With a cultivation experience from his previous life, Zhao Sheng's cultivation speed was at least twice as fast as that of the other 3 spiritual roots. Although it had only been 3 months since he broke through the 3rd level of key refining, he had already vaguely touched the edge of the 4th level, and in another half a month, he would be able to break through to the middle stage of key refining. The threshold between the 3rd and 4th levels of key refining was not too small, and if he broke through it, the cultivator's strength would be greatly improved. For Zhao Sheng, after reaching the 4th level of key refining, once he used all his skills, ordinary cultivators at the 7th or 8th level of key refining would not be his opponents. Time flew by, and half a month passed. Zhao Sheng walked out of the training room with a calm face. At this time, no one knew that he had successfully advanced to the 4th level of key refining. Chen Laoer was leaning against a dragon-shooting crossbow. Upon seeing Zhao Sheng, he exclaimed in delight, "Zhao Sheng, you've emerged from retreat. Great. It's your turn." Zhao Sheng stepped forward, smiling. "Brother Chen, go down and rest. I'll be watching over you. Don't worry, be careful, young man. We've crossed the 2nd island chain and are truly deep in the ocean. Dangers abound here, and unexpected dangers could arise at any moment. If anything happens, remember not to be afraid and immediately seek refuge in the training room." After months of spending time together, Chen Laoer had come to admire Zhao Sheng from the bottom of his heart. Risking a reprimand from the captain, he spoke the truth. Zhao Sheng felt his genuine concern. Without further ado, Zhao Sheng nodded, saying sternly, "Okay, I understand." Chen Laoer left, and Zhao Sheng gazed out at the sea. It was the open ocean, the wind strong, the waves high, and the sea beneath the surface a grayish-black hue. Zhao Sheng knew this meant the water was incredibly deep, at least several thousand feet, and even tens of thousands wouldn't be uncommon. As the saying goes, deep mountains and vast swamps give birth to dragons, only the mysterious and magnificent outer oceans could give birth to behemoths like the spirit whale. 3 days later, the weather was fine and the sea was calm. Aboard the Dafu, a group of sailors ran over the side of the ship, gazing at the sea dozens of miles away, pointing and talking. There, the waves raged, and the waves swirled. From time to time, unusually thick columns of water rose high from the surface, and then, one after another, behemoths leaped out of the water, falling back into the sea, sending up waves as huge as mountains. Listening to the thunderous roars in the distance, Zhao Sheng's expression was solemn. In his many lifetimes, this was the first time he had encountered a creature larger than a cloud dragon, except when a mountain dragon died. The spirit whale is one of the largest sea beasts in the Broken Star Sea, with an average adult length exceeding 50 feet, similar in size to the Dafu. To be precise, the Dafu's keel was forged from the vertebrae of a mature spirit whale. Once a spirit whale reaches adulthood, it becomes a second-tier demonic beast, exceptionally powerful. After a few hundred years, it can grow to 70 or 80 feet in size, easily becoming a top-tier or second-tier demonic beast, formidable only to those at the golden core stage. Occasionally, a particularly gifted individual grows to over 100 feet, becoming a third-tier demonic beast. If it weren't for the spirit whale's inherently gentle nature and its aversion to aggressiveness, it would have long since dominated the oceans, joining the likes of the tyrant sea scorpion and the flood dragon, never becoming a prey for cultivators. But then again, even the most docile spirit whales can reveal their ferocious side when faced with the threat of being killed. Whaling is an extremely dangerous occupation. Nearly 100 treasure ships set out on whale hunts on Whale Island each year, but only 80% return safely. Remember, even a treasure ship capable of hunting spirit whales must have at least one Foundation establishment cultivator aboard, and even then, the loss rate exceeds 20%. The dangers are unimaginable. Of course, the greater the dangers of whaling, the greater the profits from success. On the second deck, Dafu watched the pod of spirit whales frolicking in the distance, his expression grave. The Dafu was capable of catching a single spirit whale, but they wouldn't dare confront a group of them. Just then, Laner, standing nearby, turned and asked, "Dad, should we set out the bait?" Dafu stroked his beard and waved his hand. "No rush. Let's observe for a few days. When we find a lone whale, we can strike." 3 days later, a thunderstorm suddenly struck. On this day, the opportunity Dafu had been waiting for finally arrived. Chapter 160 Whale Hunting. Crack. Boom. Over the boundless ocean, thick dark clouds obscured the sun. Lightning flashed and thunder roared within the clouds, thick, crisscrossing streaks of blue and white lightning forming a web of chains, while the thunder resounded across the heavens and earth. As if a rip had opened in the heavens, torrential rain poured down from the dark clouds like a flood. Amidst the howling winds, the vast ocean surged, towering waves as tall as mountains rolling in and crashing down upon everything. The treasure ship, over 50 feet long, was like a toy in this inclement weather, alternately thrown high above the waves, then submerged, only to defiantly emerge from the water, its hull rocking violently and nearly capsizing several times. Yet, none of this quenched Dafu's desire for instant wealth. Under his skillful control, his crew worked seamlessly together, navigating the Dafu through the raging wind and waves, clinging to the school of spirit whales. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours later, the thunder suddenly ceased, and soon the rain stopped and the clouds dispersed. The dark clouds and rainstorm had come and gone quickly, and in the blink of an eye, the sun was shining brightly again. Dafu didn't care where the boat was drifting, all he cared about was the thick column of water rising from the sea not far away. What a great opportunity! Seeing that the whale had been separated from the pod, Dafu acted decisively, expanding his spiritual awareness to its maximum, covering everyone on board. A message immediately flooded into everyone's mind. "Attention everyone, take your positions immediately. Whether you'll have a good meal or return empty-handed depends on your cooperation. Move." In the cabin, Chenleo jumped up excitedly, shouting, "Hey, finally, we can start the killing. I've been waiting until my bones are moldy." Zhao Sheng also jumped down from the bulkhead that secured his body and climbed onto the deck behind Chenleo. A moment later, the sailors on the Dafu's deck took their positions, and a pale golden spiritual energy network emerged from the deck, connecting everyone to the formation. Dafu, shirtless, stood behind a large dragon-shooting crossbow. Li Mu and a 9th-level key-refining sailor stood behind the other two. Dafu, with a dignified demeanor, turned to the crew and solemnly asked, "Are you all ready?" The sailors immediately shouted, "Captain, we're all ravenous and thirsty." "Give the order." Seeing the high morale, Dafu smiled with satisfaction, turned, and grasped the crossbow's hammer with both hands. With a series of clicks, the crossbow adjusted its mount slightly, and the cold flash of the arrow shot out, its sharp tip aimed at a spirit whale resting on the sea surface a mile away. Bang! 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 With a sudden crashing sound, a 6-foot-long black iron crossbow bolt suddenly vanished from its mount, shooting out at a speed too high to be seen with the naked eye. Zhao Sheng's ears barely registered the humming of the crossbow string, only to be met with a high, mournful wail cry the next moment. 3 pillars of blood suddenly erupted from the distant sea, dyeing the surrounding waters red. Ahem. The next moment, Zhao Sheng saw 3 silver-white ropes suddenly leap out of the water, instantly stretched straight. Then, with a thud, the Dafu's hull shook violently, its bow plunging sharply. Zhao Sheng felt a powerful thrust from his back. Fortunately, he had been warned and had planted his feet firmly, avoiding a humiliating blow. "Pay attention to your lower body. Activate the formation," Dafu instructed his crew with remarkable composure. Meanwhile, the Dafu slowly moved forward, its speed gradually increasing. Zhao Sheng was inwardly astonished by the immense strength of the spirit whale, capable of pulling a treasure ship over 50 feet long and weighing 1,000 tons. Even with this thought in mind, Zhao Sheng moved without delay. Spiritual energy rapidly surged from his dantian, pouring into the spiritual energy formation beneath his feet. Within a breath, the spiritual energy network on the deck was already ablaze with spiritual energy, emitting a rich, multicolored aura. As this happened, the Dafu ship's speed actually began to slow slightly. This clearly indicated that the ship's engines were fully engaged, and the struggle with the spirit whale had begun. Bang! 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 The dragon-shooting crossbow fired 3 consecutive rounds, each of its 9 arrows piercing deep into the spirit whale's body. Meanwhile, the Defu's 12 whale retaining ropes had tautly flexed into a straight line, firmly connecting the spirit whale to the ship. Excellent. Seeing this, Hai Defu licked his lips excitedly, his gaze fixed on the fleeing spirit whale ahead. If all went well, the spirit whale would be the Defu's capture sooner or later. However, his joy was premature. The next second, the rope suddenly loosened and fell to the surface of the sea. At the same moment, a mile ahead, a massive black and white whale's tail, shaped like a fan, suddenly stretched high into the air. It then slammed into the water, sending up a massive wave over 10 feet high. Hai Defu's face paled as he saw this, and he screamed, "Oh no! Get out of here!" As soon as he finished speaking, everyone on board changed their expressions. A vast, mountain-like black whaleback suddenly appeared on the surface of the sea not far away. At that moment, the waters within a 10-mile radius surged violently. The spirit whale, turning its head and tail, swept along an unimaginable amount of water, creating towering waves that charged fiercely towards the Defu. Given the spirit whale's immense mass, weighing thousands of tons, and the immeasurable amount of water behind it, a collision with the Defu would have been disastrous. Lift off! Lift off! Hai Defu's face darkened with rage, and he roared wildly as he suddenly soared at breakneck speed, crashing headfirst into the rudder cabin. Kang Tao Li Mu also shouted, "Everyone, don't hold back. Infuse your spiritual energy with all your might." His warning was unnecessary. Everyone knew the most dangerous moment had arrived. At this crucial moment, everyone exerted all their might. Zhao Sheng clutched a spiritual stone in each hand, veins bulging from his face and head. A vortex of spiritual energy swirled in his Danshan, and his entire body poured like a flood into the spiritual power formation beneath him. Buzz! The spiritual power network instantly became dazzling, and the torrent of spiritual energy was rapidly channeled into the spiritual stone furnace in the cabin. Boom! The Defu lurched violently, and with a creaking sound, the ship began to slowly lift off the surface. Faster, faster! The rapidly approaching massive wave, especially the massive dark brown back at the forefront, filled everyone with anxiety. 1 zang, 2 zang, 3 zang. The Defu rapidly rose into the air, on the verge of surpassing the height of the wave. At that moment, the mighty spirit whale suddenly leaped high from the sea, its tail slapping the waves behind it. With the added force, the spirit whale's body towered over the treasure ship. The next second, the spirit whale's head dipped, and with fearless momentum, it slammed straight into the Defu. "It's over." Seeing this, everyone was horrified, their thoughts running through their minds. However, as a seasoned whaling expert, Hai Defu would not sit idly by. A fierce glint flashed in his eyes. Regardless of the risk of damaging the spirit stone furnace, he immediately switched the direction of his spiritual power, violently switching from a levitation array to a gravity array. In an instant, the Defu's hull abruptly paused, then plummeted from the sky. In that instant, the spirit whale shattered the mast, narrowly skimming the Defu's deck. 3 sailors were unlucky enough to be struck directly by the spirit whale, exploding into pulp and clung to the whale's head. Boom! A mountain-like wave crashed down upon the falling Defu. The ship tilted nearly 90 degrees, its bottom heaving high and sideways, and threatened to capsize. Fortunately, the ship had a skilled captain who managed to turn the bow just in time, so that the stern faced the waves, pushing the hull forward and preventing a tragic capsize. Chapter 161 Death Flame and Strange Aura. A torrent of water crashed onto the deck, crushing Zhao Sheng. However, he was prepared. With a single thought, he enveloped himself in a giant ball of water, cushioning the impact and preventing any injuries. Some, caught off guard, were swept away by the surging waves and quickly lost in the vast ocean. However, the Defu's sailors were all cultivators, and their fate was not easily lost. Zhao Sheng had no time to consider their fate. Meanwhile, the Defu's battle with the spirit whale had just begun. The spirit whale attempted a repeat attack, but the Defu easily dodged it. Under Hai Defu's control, the Defu's dodging was a true art. From then on, no matter how many times the spirit whale struck, the Defu dodged each one. The whole process was thrilling and exciting, difficult to describe in words. It looked like a bullfight. Half a day later, the nearby sea had turned a bloody red. The spirit whale's energy was greatly depleted, its initial momentum fading. With a mournful wail, the spirit whale suddenly swung its tail and dived rapidly underwater. Bang, bang, bang. 12 whale harboring ropes suddenly tightened, the immense pull causing the bow of the Defu to rapidly sink. If this continued, the hull would inevitably sink beneath the sea. Hai Dafu was not surprised but delighted, knowing this was the spirit whale's last-ditch effort. "Everyone, get into the cabin. We're starting to whaling, wow!" At the captain's command, one sailor exclaimed in excitement. The most thrilling part of the whaling hunt was finally over, the long journey of diving began. Once the spirit whale's strength was exhausted and its blood had flowed, the harvest would arrive. 2 breaths later, the deck was empty. As the seawater flooded over the deck, a faint film of light enveloped the Defu. The next moment, the Defu disappeared from the surface of the sea, dragged by the spirit whale deeper into the sea. Inside the cabin, Zhao Sheng and the others returned to their positions, pressing their hands against the spiritual array on the bulkhead, silently contributing their spiritual power to the spirit stone furnace. At this point, there was only so much they could do. Elsewhere, in the helmsman's cabin, Hai Lanner and Li Mu guarded the cabin door, while Hai Dafu held the rudder firmly, his gaze through the glazed window watching the fleeing spirit whale. He could sense the ship's speed gradually decreasing, a sign that the spirit whale was nearing exhaustion. Half a day later, the Defu's speed had slowed to a crawl. However, Hai Dafu was now extremely nervous, not only because he had to guard against the spirit whale's dying attack, but also because the Defu had already dived thousands of feet below the surface. The surroundings were pitch black, occasionally punctuated by strange, glowing marine creatures. Visibility was extremely poor. In such mysterious and uncharted waters, no precaution was too great. A moment later, Highlander suddenly exclaimed, "Dad, what is that?" Before she could finish her words, Li Mu flashed to the glazed window, his expression grave. Hai Dafu frowned at the strange sight ahead. At that moment, as the three looked ahead, they saw a faint blue flame suddenly appear in the pitch-black waters ahead. This flame, bubbling in the water, was extremely dim, seemingly about to fade away at any moment, but it stood out against the pitch-black backdrop. As the Dafu slowly moved forward, the faint blue flames grew in number. Slowly, one reached the helm station, but as if a phantom, it silently passed through the thick wall and entered. Seeing this, Hai Lanner and Li Mu quickly moved away, while Hai Dafu seemed lost in thought. The next moment, the flame pierced the wall again, vanishing from sight. However, this was only the beginning. More and more faint blue flames pierced the ship's hull, appearing before the three. Meanwhile, the appearance of these strange flames caused a commotion below. However, everyone quickly calmed down, realizing that these flames were harmless, like ghosts and apparitions, with no connection to the material world. Someone accidentally passed through the body of a flame, but found themselves unharmed. Watching countless flames appear and disappear, Halener couldn't contain her curiosity and asked, "Dad, what is this?" Hai Dafu shook his head uncertainly, saying, "There are so many unknowns in this world. I don't know what it is either. I just think it's similar to the legendary underwater phosphorescent fire." Halener, intrigued, pressed on, "Dad, don't you think they look like some kind of spiritual fire from heaven and earth?" Very likely a spiritual fire never before discovered." As she spoke, Halener began to attempt to capture these strange flames, and Li Mu, standing beside her, also became interested. Hai Dafu thought for a moment and didn't stop his daughter's actions, returning his attention to the dying spirit whale. Meanwhile, some of the sailors in the cabin had clearly shared Halen's idea. Some of them were quick to try to capture the faint blue flames. Seeing someone take the lead, the others followed suit, each employing their own methods, except for Zhao Sheng. At this moment, his face was as gloomy as water, and he stood far away from the bulkhead, trying his best to avoid being touched by the flames while secretly observing the expressions of the others. In Zhao Sheng's field of vision, the pale blue flames were shrouded in a faint black mist. When someone touched the flames, the white light outside their body was also tinted with a faint black. Black means death. The flames are dangerous, extremely dangerous. Seeing this, Zhao Sheng's heart was filled with alarm, and his danger senses were fully activated. "Don't touch. These flames are strange and very dangerous. It's best not to touch them," Zhao Sheng kindly warned them out of kindness. Some, such as Chen Laor, listened to his advice. After several months of interacting with them, Chen Laor knew that Zhao Sheng, despite his youthful appearance, was actually calm and mature, and definitely not someone who spoke without thinking. His warning must have detected some danger. Chen Laor's thinking didn't mean that others agreed with Zhao Sheng. To put it bluntly, money was the key to success. No one in the cabin knew about such strange flames, let alone had ever seen them. In the Xianzhu realm, the more bizarre and extraordinary something is, the more precious it is. Flame-related treasures are especially valuable. If these faint blue flames were a kind of celestial spiritual fire, or even some extremely rare true celestial fire, then wouldn't they have become extremely wealthy? As the saying goes, if you can't persuade someone with good words, they're doomed. Zhao Sheng, seeing the crowd's greed, stopped trying to persuade them. Chen Laor leaned in front of Zhao Sheng and whispered, Zhao Sheng, have you discovered something? Zhao Sheng nodded. Then shook his head. His voice was barely audible. Chen, I've had amazing spiritual perception since I was a child. When I saw those flames just now, I felt something was very dangerous. Extremely dangerous? Chen Laor was stunned by this and then fell silent. Zhao Sheng's reason seemed outrageous, but such extraordinary spiritual perceptions were not uncommon in the world of immortal cultivation. You, huh? Chen Laor suddenly stopped short, and Zhao Sheng exclaimed in surprise. The two looked at each other and said at the same time, do you feel it? At this time, everyone in the cabin who was trying to capture the light stopped their actions at the same time. At this moment, everyone felt something unusual. They felt a strange, cold aura quietly flowing into the cabin. This aura was obviously different from the five elements aura. Zhao Sheng held his breath and concentrated his mind, sensing the world with his mind, and then saw that the surrounding space was filled with countless gray aura particles. In an instant, a rare aura in the world suddenly emerged in Zhao Sheng's mind. Please subscribe and vote for me. Chapter 162 Strange Suicide. Pure Yin Spiritual Energy, someone suddenly shouted. The cabin erupted in an uproar. There are many kinds of spiritual energy, and the more extreme the properties, the rarer it is. The five elements of gold, wood, water, fire, and earth are the most common, followed by wind, thunder, and ice. The rarest of all is the yin and yang spiritual energy. Yin and yang spiritual energy is so rare because its birth conditions are extremely demanding, requiring both time and terrain. Even a slight deviation can cause it to evolve into other spiritual energy or even vanish into thin air. Following the simple principle that the rarer, the more precious, the unique regions that foster yin and yang spiritual energy often conceal equally precious treasures. As the Dafu sailed forward, the pure yin spiritual energy in the surrounding environment grew richer, and the faint blue flames grew more intense. In the Dafu's helm, Highlander had already stopped trying to capture the flames, staring ahead in shock. Li Mu, playing it cool, gaped slightly, his face pale. Through the glazed windows, they could see, against the pitch-black backdrop, a boundless, dark blue ocean slowly unfolding before the three of them. Countless dark blue flames rose from the ocean, drifting and undulating freely within the waters. Beneath the sea, as far as the eye could see, bones piled like a mountain. The corpses and skeletons of countless creatures piled up and rose and fell, stretching to the horizon before fading into darkness. As the Dafu sailed across this ocean of bones, it felt like stumbling upon a strange and mysterious foreign land, mysterious, deadly, yet incredibly magnificent. After a long pause, Highlander broke the silence, her expression terrified as she stammered, "What the hell is this?" Dafu pondered for a moment, then said solemnly, "This might be the legendary ocean graveyard. We're in luck this time." Li Mu sensed he was about to back down and immediately chimed in, "Boss, the pure yin spiritual energy here is so dense, there must be a pure yin spiritual vein nearby. Our chance to prosper has arrived, and we can't miss it." Dafu nodded slightly. "Don't worry, lack of talent is a recipe for disaster. Since we've come to this treasure land, we can't return empty-handed." A moment later, the spirit whale let out its final mournful wail, its massive body completely drained of life, its corpse sinking into the dark blue ocean below. Dafu's face lit up with joy at this sight, and he immediately switched formations, commanding the Dafu to ascend. Bang! As the treasure ship rose, the whale rope quickly tightened, dragging the massive whale carcass slowly toward the surface. Halfway up the boat, Highlander suddenly clapped her father's arm, pointed at the edge of the window, and exclaimed in surprise, "Dad, look!" Dafu looked over and suddenly exclaimed in surprise. A dozen miles away, a vast shadow suddenly appeared, illuminated by a dim, azure glow. The shadow was roughly cylindrical, about a mile in diameter, growing thicker as it went further down. Intrigued, Dafu steered the Dafu towards it. As they approached, The shadow revealed its true form, a massive, towering, gray-white coral reef, accumulating from the seafloor thousands of feet deep, accumulating over countless millennia to reach its current size. As they approached the reef, Li Mu could sense the pure yin energy growing ever more intense. He was immediately overjoyed and hurriedly said, "Boss, can you feel it? This coral reef is most likely Jiling coral. That spiritual vein must be beneath it." Haidafu was stunned at the words, then his mind sensed a moment, and he burst into laughter. "It's Jiling coral indeed. It's a miracle. After searching high and low for something, it's finally found. Jiling coral, also known as Zhi coral, is naturally spiritually inclined, and wherever it grows, there must be a spiritual vein. After millions of years of growth, Jiling coral's reefs break through the sea surface, forming small coral islands. These islands eventually evolve into spiritual islands. Many of the spiritual islands in the Broken Star Sea originated from this reef." Highlander was also very excited. If this coral reef had broken through the sea surface and grown into an island, it would mean that the Hai family now possessed a spiritual island, and a rare pure yin spiritual island. With a spiritual island, the Hai family would have a foundation. Thinking of the bright future, Highlander's heart surged with excitement. A quarter of an hour later, the Defu suddenly broke through the sea, and the massive ship emerged. As soon as the treasure ship surfaced, Zhao Sheng and the others eagerly fled the cabin, rushing to the deck to breathe in the fresh air. Once everyone had calmed down, Haidafu directed the recovery of the spirit whale's corpse. 3 days passed in a flash. The waters surrounding the Defu were a bloody mess, attracting wave after wave of sharks and other marine predators, who were mercilessly slaughtered by the immortal cultivators. After 3 days and 3 nights of dismemberment, only a massive skeleton remained, nestled against the Defu. Not only were everyone's storage bags, but even the ship's warehouses were overflowing with spirit whale meat and spirit fat. In the Broken Star Sea, spirit whale meat is a food rich in spiritual energy, highly sought after by key refining immortal cultivators. Spirit fat, on the other hand, has even more uses, serving not only as a supplementary spiritual ingredient in alchemy and artifacts, but also as an essential ingredient in refining specialized fire bombs. A single spirit whale represents a colossal treasure. In the past, the Defu would have been filled with joy. But now, the ship felt devoid of joy, instead seeming profoundly gloomy. In the captain's cabin, Haidafu, Highlander, Li Mu, and Shenleo were sat together. Haidafu stroked his red beard and asked solemnly, "How many are you?" Li Mu replied grimly, "4. Skinny Monkey just jumped into the sea." As soon as he finished speaking, Shenleo burst into a rage. "Fuck. What's going on? He was fine yesterday, how could he suddenly jump into the sea and commit suicide today? Clearly, everyone was about to get rich, and yesterday they were all beaming with joy and anticipation for the future. Then, the next day, this person silently plunged into the sea and killed himself. A cultivator would actually commit suicide without warning, choosing to suffocate. It was a complete joke. But when such a joke repeats itself over and over again, it would chill anyone to the bone." Highlander was the most timid. She pulled Haidafu's sleeve in fear and said in panic, "Dad, let's go quickly. This damn place is ominous. It will be too late if we don't leave now." Haidafu was a little hesitant. There was an unknown treasure hidden under the sea area. If he left now, he might not be able to find it next time. Li Mu suggested, "Boss, I think this place is very weird. Why don't we leave the sea area temporarily and see what the situation is?" Shenleo thought of Zhao Sheng's advice when he came here, so he agreed, "Captain, the sea under this sea is an ocean cemetery. I think the death of Xiaohao and others must be related to it. It's better for us to leave first. In that case, let's." If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 163, Lost and Dead. Haidafu was halfway through his words when he was suddenly interrupted by a panicked voice, "Captain, something bad has happened. Chen Jinshu is dead. Come and have a look." Bang! After hearing this bad news, Haidafu's face turned pale. He kicked the stool away and rushed out of the room at high speed. A moment later, a full circle of people gathered around the mast on the deck, and in the middle of the crowd lay a stiff corpse with a strange smile on its face. At this time, Everyone present was worried, with expressions of panic, gloom, and anxiety on their faces. After Haidafu carefully examined the corpse, his face became even uglier. Based on his more than 100 years of experience, the two Jinshu brothers died of self-severing their heart meridians, and it was definitely not homicide. It was suicide again. Haidafu stood up and asked, "Did Jinshu show any signs of abnormality before he died?" Immediately, a tall man panicked. Jinshu wanted to jump into the sea. After I stopped him, he suddenly laughed, a laugh so chilling it made me cringe, and then he slashed his heart. Suddenly, someone in the crowd shouted, "Captain, let's get out of this hellhole." "Yes. If we stay here any longer, everyone's going to die. Captain, give me a promise." Faced with a please, Haidafu said without hesitation, "Drag the whale skeleton onto the deck, and we'll leave immediately." "Okay," everyone cheered, and the recovery process began. A quarter of an hour later, the Defu, carrying the whale skeleton, quickly sailed away from the area. However, death seemed to have its sights set on the Defu. Even after leaving the area, suicides continued to occur. Faced with these unknown and bizarre events, the immortal cultivators seemed helpless mortals, dying one by one without warning. The crew of the Defu was rapidly dwindling. In just one day, the original crew of 36 had been reduced to 12. Faced with this dire situation, Chen Laor had reported the strange nature of the phantom blue flame to Haidafu 2 days earlier, not even bothering to conceal the secret of Zhao Shen's astonishing spiritual perception. Haidafu immediately summoned Zhao Sheng for questioning. Zhao Sheng immediately informed the captain of his theory that anyone exposed to the flame would commit suicide. Once this veneer of secrecy was broken, the truth was revealed. The phantom blue flame is the murderer. After questioning all the survivors, Haidafu breathed a sigh of relief. None of the remaining crew had ever touched the flame. This was a blessing in disguise. However, as the old saying goes, good fortune never comes alone, and misfortune never comes singly. Soon, the Defu encountered another strange incident. As night fell, a thick fog suddenly rose over the sea. The fog was so thick that the sea surface could not be seen more than 2 meters away. To avoid losing their way, the Defu immediately stopped and waited for the fog to clear. On the second day, the fog quickly dissipated as the sun rose, and the Defu embarked on its return journey. However, at night, thick fog suddenly enveloped the Defu again. This was a bit strange, but it was normal for foggy weather to occur during sailing. On the third day, the fog dissipated at sunrise. At night, the fog returned as if on cue. On the fourth day, the fifth day, and so on. This continued for 7 days, and even the most heartless person noticed something was amiss. Calculating the distance, the Defu had traveled over 3,000 nautical miles in 7 days. Normally, they should have been out of the foggy seas, but Haidafu gathered all the survivors, including Zhao Sheng, Chen Laor, Hai Laner, and Li Mu. He looked at them and asked earnestly, "What do you think is going on?" They all glanced at each other, but no one spoke first. Seeing this, Haidafu called on them, "Li Mu, speak." Li Mu thought for a moment, his expression grave, and said, "Boss, I'm afraid we're lost." The moment he spoke, everyone's heart sank. At that moment, Zhao Sheng shook his head and said gravely, "I believe we're not only lost, but we've been circling in the same area for 7 days. Haidafu's expression darkened. "Zhao Shen, do you have any evidence for what you say?" Zhao Sheng pointed to the sea. "The evidence is beneath the surface." Half an hour later, Haidafu surfaced with a gloomy expression. He brought back dire news: the ocean graveyard lay beneath their feet. In other words, the Defu had been circling around for 7 days and had returned to its starting point. At night, the Defu, ignoring the fog, sped away. A night later, the sun rose, the fog dissipated, and Haidafu dived again, only to resurface with an even gloomier expression. 2 months had passed in the blink of an eye, and the Defu remained trapped in this area. That day, Haidafu gathered everyone and made an announcement. "I'm going to explore the pure yin spiritual vein. Who wants to come with me?" As soon as he finished speaking, someone stepped forward. "I'll go, count me in, it's time to go." He, the brave Dai, the timid Dai, with these expressions of intent, a staggering 8 of the 12 agreed to go. However, Zhao Sheng wasn't among them. Zhao Sheng had his own plans. After all, cultivation was a possibility wherever he went. Now guarding a boatload of spirit whale meat, he had no shortage of cultivation resources. His most important priority now was improving his cultivation, everything else could come later. While Zhao Sheng remained silent, Hai Dafu glared at his daughter and said in a deep voice, "Laner, you're not allowed to go." Hai Laner pouting, "Dad, I want to go." Hai Dafu said without hesitation, "I say no, and it's no." Hai Laner tried to argue, but her father silenced her with a wave of his hand. After careful consideration, Hai Dafu decided to leave half the group on board, with the others, those who weren't afraid of death, following him. Splash, splash. The sea rippled, and the figures of Hai Dafu and his 6 companions quickly disappeared beneath the surface. Hai Laner watched with eager eyes as they dived into the seabed. At that moment, Li Mu approached her and soothed her, "Laner, don't worry. The boss will be back soon." Hai Laner's face was filled with hope. "Uncle Mu, are you serious?" "Of course. Don't forget, your father is a 6th-level Foundation Establishment cultivator." However, a day passed, and Hai Dafu and his companions didn't return. 2, 3, 4 days passed, and still no news of Hai Dafu and his companions. Li Mu's expression changed. As agreed, they would promptly report back, regardless of any new discoveries. But now, with no one alive or dead, what was going on? Another day passed, and as the sun rose again from the horizon, Hai Laner finally couldn't wait any longer. On the deck, her face stained with tears, she cried out, "Uncle Mu, let me go. I want to find my father." She struggled several times to get out to sea, but Li Mu's iron grip wouldn't break free. Li Mu said coldly, "Going now will be useless. All we can do now is wait. Let me go. Let me go." As he spoke, Zhao Sheng came out of the cabin and saw the argument between the two. Although he was unwilling to admit it, in his heart, Hai Dafu and others were probably in danger. Zhao Sheng stepped forward and chopped Hai Laner on the back of the neck with one palm, knocking her unconscious. Zhao Sheng took advantage of the situation to catch her limp body, and at the same time looked at Li Mu and said, "Kang Tao, I'll take her down to rest." Li Mu said with approval, "You keep an eye on her for me, and don't let her do anything stupid." After Zhao Sheng nodded, he suddenly asked, "Kang Tao, what should we do if the captain can't come back? What should we do?" "Let's take it one step at a time." Li Mu turned his head and looked at the sparkling sea, looking melancholy. Chapter 164 Women will only affect the speed of my cultivation. A large, greasy, white, roasted meat sat trembling on the table, emitting a rich, meaty aroma. Zhao Sheng frowned, staring at it for a moment before picking up the meat and shoving it into his mouth. He bit down the fat, chewed it briefly, and swallowed it hard. Soon, a full 5 pounds of spirit whale meat was in Zhao Sheng's stomach. Wiping the greasy sheen from the corners of his mouth, Zhao Sheng suppressed nausea and closed his eyes, practicing his cultivation techniques. As he digested the spirit whale meat, he absorbed the spiritual energy emanating from it. As streams of spiritual energy were drawn from his stomach into his danshan, they were quickly refined by the spiritual energy vortex and became part of his spiritual power. Through this repeated absorption and refining, Zhao Sheng's cultivation level gradually improved. A year had passed since Hai Dafu and the others disappeared. In that year, Zhao Sheng had miraculously broken through from the 4th to the 5th level of key refining. Well, in the eyes of Hai Laner, Li Mu, and the others, this was nothing short of a miracle. But Zhao Sheng knew that this was no big deal. After all, he had already gone through it in his previous life. As long as he had sufficient resources for cultivation in this life, he could guarantee that he would be promoted to the foundation building stage before the age of 30. Bang, bang, bang. After an unknown amount of time, the spirit whale meat was completely digested, the spiritual energy was completely refined, and Zhao Sheng woke up from his cultivation state. He finished his training, stood up, opened the door and walked out. As soon as he got on the deck, Zhao Sheng suddenly raised his eyebrows, and then his expression returned to normal, and he even smiled faintly. On the deck, Hai Laner leaned against the side of the boat, humming in her mouth to deal with the chattering Gixinchu next to her, but she was actually very annoyed in her heart. When she looked up, she saw Zhao Sheng appear, and a bright smile suddenly appeared on her face. This made Gixinchu, who was trying hard to please the beauty, dumbfounded. Hai Laner cheered and ran to Zhao Sheng with joy. She narrowed her eyes and said with an eager smile, "Zhao Sheng, you've come out of seclusion. How's your cultivation going? If you have any questions, you can ask me." "Yes, ask Uncle Mu." A year later, Hai Laner finally came out of the haze of losing her father, but this also brought a side effect. From then on, she became obsessed with Zhao Sheng. Who made Zhao Sheng always act like a caring big brother to comfort her and take care of her. Zhao Sheng was originally entrusted by Li Mu, and at the same time, he treated Helena as a little girl who had lost her father. Out of sympathy and compassion, he took care of her for a while to help her get out of the haze and regain hope in life. If he knew the price would be this, Zhao Sheng would definitely not be so attentive. After all, women will only affect the speed of his cultivation. Faced with Helena's overly enthusiastic attitude, Zhao Sheng calmly walked forward, casually asking, "Uncle Mu, are you back?" Helena glanced up at the sky and quickly followed, saying, "Uncle Mu's been out for nearly 3 hours. He'll probably be back soon." Within 2 words, Gixinchu, standing nearby, had already approached. Jealousy welled up in him, and a flash of yellow light flashed across his hand as he suddenly clapped his hands on Zhao Sheng's shoulders. At the same time, he smiled, saying, "Zhao Sheng, long time no see." A cold glance flashed across Zhao Sheng's eyes, and his shoulders suddenly sank, dodging the attack. "Brother Gui, didn't we just meet yesterday?" Zhao Sheng paused, his expression calm. Gixinchu frowned. He had intended to teach the pretty boy a lesson, but his attempt had failed. "Nice skills. Let me see if you've improved lately." With that, Gixinchu, unconcerned with bullying, glowed with a yellow light and lunged forward. Gixinchu was a key refining stage 7 cultivator, second only to Li Mu, who had reached the great perfection of key refining, among the 6 survivors. Perhaps it was because he'd been adrift at sea for so long without any female companions, or perhaps it was because Helena was so beautiful, or perhaps he simply wanted to woo her both financially and physically. In short, Gixinchu's lust had grown intense, and he'd been doing everything he could to please Helena, hoping to win her over. Zhao Sheng scoffed, thinking, he doesn't even consider his own pointed, monkey-faced features and advanced age. How could Helena possibly be interested in him? One must know one's own limitations. Gixinchu felt good about himself, even confident. A late key refining stage cultivator could easily teach a lesson to a few key refining stage 5 brats. But in reality, his expectations were too good to be true. 1 pounce, 2 ribs, 3 throws. On the deck, the two chased each other, their figures shifting with a dazzling speed. Gixinchu clawed and kicked for a long moment, panting with exhaustion, yet he couldn't even reach the edge of Zhao Sheng's clothes. He didn't believe a 15 or 16-year-old boy was stronger than him, only that he was too cunning. If Li Mu hadn't forbidden the use of weapons on the boat, Gixinchu would have drawn his magical weapon, the Golden Bite Sword, and chopped the nasty little devil into pieces. At that moment, Zhao Sheng suddenly looked up at the sky, then paused, waved to Gixinchu, and said, "Brother Gui, please stop for now. Uncle Mu and the others are back." As soon as he finished speaking, a 3-meter-long miniature cloud boat suddenly descended from the sky and landed lightly on the deck. Li Mu, his face stern, leaped from the cloud boat, followed by 2 burly men, one tall and one short. The taller one was Yan Kai, the shorter one was Zhu Li, both cultivators in the middle stage of key refining. Helena was overjoyed to see Li Mu return and hurried forward to greet him. "Uncle Mu, have you found anything?" Li Mu habitually shook his head and replied, "No." Helena curled her lips in disappointment, but after being disappointed so often, she wasn't too disappointed. She quickly perked up and chattered around Li Mu about trivial and boring things. Li Mu had been saved by Haidafu in his youth, and for the past 20 years, he had been on the Dafu, Haidafu's right-hand man. He had also watched Helena grow up, so after Haidafu's disappearance, he had already treated her like his own daughter. This was also a key reason why Gixinchu didn't dare to force Helena. It was a calm night, with thick fog all around. Bang! A dull crash suddenly broke the silence, and the Dafu's hull shook slightly, creaking and grinding. Zhao Sheng, who was meditating in the rudder compartment, suddenly opened his eyes, slapped the floor with his right hand, and flew out of the room at a breakneck speed. Crossing the fog-shrouded deck, he reached the side of the ship. Seeing a massive black shadow swaying faintly through the mist, Zhao Sheng was startled and exclaimed in surprise, "What is this?" A moment later, the 6 gathered on the deck. Zhao Sheng gazed at the sea ship across from him, lost in thought. This ship was peculiar. Nearly a third smaller than the Dafu, it was a 2-decker, single-decked vessel. A thick layer of gray-green seaweed covered the gray, cracked planking. The deck, mast, and hull were covered in pitch black, demon-like barnacles and various other marine growths. Slippery, dark green sunflower tentacles protruded chaotically from the cracks in the deck and the cabin. Looking at the ship across from him, Gixinchu exclaimed in surprise, "This is a ghost ship. In the shattered Star Sea, unmanned vessels like these that sink and then resurface, drifting on the sea, are known as ghost ships. The broken Star Sea is filled with strange and mysterious things, and ghost ships are one of them. Ghost ships sometimes harbor unknown dangers, and there's even a record of a giant and immortal dying after boarding a ghost ship in the broken Star Sea. In reality, most ghost ships pose no real threat, simply abandoned, unmanned vessels. However, there are also many lucky individuals who have found treasures left behind by their ancestors aboard ghost ships, changing their fates." Chapter 165, A Way Out of Despair. After carefully examining the strange ship, Li Mu nodded and said, "Yes, it's indeed a ghost ship. Who's going to come with me to investigate?" Upon hearing this, Highlander turned and looked at Zhao Sheng. Zhao Sheng understood why she was looking at him, so he said, "I don't sense any danger." As soon as he finished speaking, Gui Zinshu enthusiastically said, "Boss Mu, I'll go with you, count me in." Not wanting to miss out, the others signed up as well. After some expressions of interest, the 6 of them simply boarded the ship together. The details of their search aboard are beyond description. An hour later, everyone left the ghost ship and returned to the Dafu to share their findings. Gui Zin was eager to show off to everyone that he had just found a high-quality magical instrument and 2 storage bags. Zhao Sheng paid no attention to Gui Zinshu's boasting. He was only concerned with the 2 items in Li Mu's hands, a golden navigation plate and a palm-sized white jade slip. The golden navigation plate was engraved with a nautical chart, and the importance of a nautical chart was obvious. In the shattered Star Sea, a nautical chart was arguably the most precious treasure on a ship. Zhao Sheng patiently waited for Li Mu to finish reading the golden plaque and then, after he had removed the jade slip from his forehead, took the opportunity to ask, "Uncle Mu, did you learn anything?" Li Mu glanced at Zhao Sheng and held out the jade slip. "Take a look for yourself." Zhao Sheng took the slip, pressed it to his forehead, and peered into it with his mind. Misty Sea, Deathly Flames, Soul-Sucking True Water, Thundercloud Storm. Zhao Sheng read with agony. So much time had passed that the imprint of his consciousness within the slip had largely dissipated, leaving the information fragmented. After a lot of effort, he only gained fragmented information. "Let me see." Zhao Sheng had just removed the slip when a white, tender hand reached out before him. Handing the slip to Highlander, Zhao Sheng fell into deep thought. Combining his own experiences with the information on the slip, Zhao Sheng determined they were in the Misty Sea. The Misty Sea is a mysterious area of the ocean beyond the broken Star Sea, perpetually shrouded in fog. Ships that strayed into it rarely emerged alive. The sea he was in was unlike any other sea of fog. It appeared normal during the day, only returning to its shrouded state at night. This was one reason they had suspected it, but hadn't dared to confirm it. Zhao Sheng didn't dwell on why this area was different from other seas, he focused solely on how to escape. Escaping from the sea of fog was difficult, but the jade slip suggested a plan: during thunderstorms, taking advantage of a brief break in the fog and risking a voyage until it could break free. Sailing under thunderstorms was extremely dangerous. Unless there was no other option, it was best not to attempt it. After all, it was just a plan. Zhao Sheng had also come up with a plan for escape, but the current conditions didn't allow it, so he had to keep it to himself for now. While Zhao Sheng was pondering, the jade slip had already been passed around to the others. When Li Mu asked for their opinions, Gixinchu, the most adventurous, immediately expressed his determination to give it a try. Yan Kai and Zhu Li, however, subtly expressed caution. Highlander had no idea, she only considered Li Mu's opinion. Zhao Sheng concluded. "The jade slips are just ideas. Besides, we're short on manpower." His words instantly awakened everyone. With only 6 of them, they were far from capable of unleashing the full power of the Dafu. To unleash the Dafu's full potential, at least 20 cultivators would be needed. Li Mu frowned. Gixinchu, deeply disappointed, complained, "Damn. I don't want to die on this ship. I haven't even gotten married yet." Zhao Sheng said, "All we can do now is wait for another treasure ship to get stuck here." Everyone's spirits soared upon hearing this. That's right. If another ship arrived, wouldn't it be enough to gather the manpower? Seeing the high spirits, Li Mu's brow relaxed slightly, but his expression remained preoccupied. Zhao Sheng observed this and, with a fleeting thought, guessed what he was thinking. Time was running out for Li Mu. After the ghost ship incident, morale soared, and the frequency of Yun Tao's outings to explore the surrounding area increased from once a day to 3 times a day. For the first month, morale was high, with 3 outings a day. In the third month, morale dipped slightly, so the number was reduced to twice a day. In the 6th month, morale plummeted, and the number returned to once a day. 3 years later, Spirit Stone reserves were depleted, and morale declined. Exploration missions became a perfunctory affair, a haphazard affair. Amidst these circumstances, Zhao Sheng's cultivation quietly advanced to the 7th level of key refining, albeit at the cost of consuming so much spirit whale meat that he vomited. For several years, Zhao Sheng frequently used the excuse of improving his diet to go fishing for prawns, fish, sea beasts, and other seafood. Witnessing his extraordinary aquatic prowess, everyone had grown accustomed to this. With more dives, Zhao Sheng gradually gained a deeper understanding of the sea area and made more discoveries. He discovered that as long as he avoided the deathly flames on the seabed and stayed within the coral reef, the area presented little danger. Zhao Sheng also discovered that the spiritual source of the pure yin spiritual vein lay beneath a coral reef, and that the ocean cemetery, centered on the reef, encompassed approximately 300 square kilometers. Over the past 3 years, Zhao Sheng had clearly sensed Li Mu's particular interest in the pure yin spiritual vein. Li Mu had made no secret of his intentions, repeatedly requesting Zhao Sheng take him to the reef to investigate. However, these were merely exploratory visits. Li Mu hadn't ventured beyond the bounds of his authority. Zhao Sheng knew he was biding his time. As for what that time might be, 3 months later, a thunderstorm had just passed. Highlander stood glumly on the deck, gazing blankly at the morning glow. They say women change dramatically as they grow older, and the same is true for men. At 20, Zhao Sheng had blossomed into a handsome, slender man with a mature and steady demeanor. So, there were things Zhao Sheng couldn't just evade. For example, Highlander's infatuation with him was obvious to even a fool. But someone was so clueless and always passive-aggressive that Gui Zinshu was furious and wished he could take that person's place. As the morning glow faded and the sun leaped out of the sea, a black dot suddenly appeared on the horizon where the sun and the sea met. Highlander fixed her gaze, rubbed her eyes, and after confirming she was seeing correctly, she suddenly shouted with ecstasy, "There's a ship! A ship is coming." "What? Where's the ship coming from?" Upon hearing about the ship, Gui Zinshu hurried out of the rudder compartment, jumping up and down as he gazed into the distance. Seeing the black dot, he was overjoyed. It really is a ship. At this time, Li Mu, Zhao Sheng, and others also hurried to the deck, watching the ship gradually appear on the distant sea, all with joy on their faces. Year after year, they had finally waited. Chapter 166, Strange Jade. In a vacated cabin aboard the Dafu, Zhao Sheng stood before a wooden table, eyes closed in deep concentration. Suddenly, he abruptly opened his eyes, a glint of confidence in them. Picking up the azure talisman brush on the table, Zhao Sheng channeled his spiritual energy into the tip, swishing across the talisman paper. A flash of spiritual light emanated from the brush's path, and a complex and meticulous talisman quickly emerged from the paper, a vibrant glow. An invisible thunderbolt suddenly exploded in the soul sea, and Zhao Sheng instantly stopped writing, a satisfied smile spreading across his face. Second-level mind talisman, done. Drawing on his vast experience and natural talent, Zhao Sheng, at only the 7th level of key refining, successfully created a second-level true talisman. After a brief moment of recuperation, Zhao Sheng picked up the talisman brush again and continued drawing. He needed to accumulate as many trump cards as possible before embarking on his underwater adventure. 7 days later, as the sun rose and the mist dissipated, the 2 ships returned to this strange sea. After 7 days of failure, the cultivators aboard the Zhijin were forced to face reality and acknowledge their position as trapped in the foggy seas. The Zhijin was 2 sizes smaller than the Dafu, but it wasn't a whaling ship. Instead, it was a transport vessel, plying the outer seas and the open ocean, buying low and selling high, profiting from the price difference. On the deck of the Zhijin, Li Mu addressed a short, stout, golden-robed elder and said, "Master Chen, I wasn't kidding you. Without a nautical chart, there's no way out of this foggy sea." The short, stout elder's face was filled with worry. He sighed, his expression solemn, and resolutely said, "Okay, as fellow Taoist Li says, we'll go with you to the seabed to recover the ship's master's body." "But are you sure he has the chart?" Li Mu replied solemnly, "I'm sure." Next to the Zhejian, Zhao Sheng leaned against the Dafu's side, silently observing Li Mu's deception. Zhao Sheng was well aware of Li Mu's hidden agenda, but since they were on the same side, he naturally wouldn't expose his ruse. Furthermore, the Zhejian was no pushover. When the two sides first met, they relied on their 15 cultivators to attempt to seize the Dafu. This was thanks to Li Mu, a key refining great perfection swordsman with unrivaled killing power. The Zhejian, however, lacked a foundation establishment cultivator, and the highest level of cultivation was comparable to Li Mu's. That day, Li Mu unleashed his full might, using only a flying sword to defeat 3. Even the combined strength of 3 late key refining cultivators was no match for him. This was the reason for the current peaceful situation. After concluding the discussion, Li Mu immediately instructed Zhao Sheng and Gixinchu to prepare. A day later, under Zhao Sheng's guidance, the Dafu and Zhejian ships anchored at a point in the sea. Beneath the surface lay the Shanling Reef. On the day of departure, Zhao Sheng and the other 6 men argued, specifically because Heiliner insisted on going along. The original plan for this adventure was entirely voluntary, but Heiliner was excluded because Li Mu wouldn't let her go. But Heiliner's desire to go was incredibly strong. No matter how Li Mu tried to persuade her, she was adamant and determined to go. Li Mu had no choice but to accede to Heiliner's wishes. Yan Kai and Zhu Li, unwilling to take the risk, volunteered to stay behind. Thus, the Dafu's party consisted of Li Mu, Zhao Sheng, Gui Zinshu, and Heiliner. Perhaps inspired by Li Mu's propaganda about the hidden spiritual veins and treasures beneath the sea, the cultivators aboard the Zhejian enthusiastically signed up. After eliminating 3 cultivators in the early stages of key refining and the short, stout old man who remained behind, the remaining 11 decided to go. Plop, plop. As Li Mu led the way, the other cultivators followed suit. The sound of diving echoed across the surface of the water. As they entered the water, a pale blue, circular shield of light appeared above each cultivator's head. This shield, known as the aquascuba technique, was specifically designed to filter oxygen from seawater for human breathing. In the Broken Star Sea, the aqualung technique is a first-level spell that cultivators must master. Meanwhile, with the exception of Li Mu and Heiliner, the other cultivators all looked askance at blue-eyes Zhao Sheng. Because he was an outlier, Zhao Sheng clearly sensed the hostility and wariness in their gazes, but his heart remained calm. He had lived through countless lifetimes and encountered countless dangers. This was nothing compared to the present. He simply didn't take this bit of hostility to heart. The group descended swiftly, reaching a depth of 100 feet in a flash, reaching the top of the coral reef. After a brief adjustment of their formation, Li Mu took the lead and continued their descent along the reef. 200 feet, 500 feet, 1,000 feet. At 1,000 feet below, the surroundings became pitch black and silent, and the water pressure was astonishingly intense. Everyone then used their abilities, some casting spells, others drawing on the power of magical instruments to counter the overwhelming pressure from all directions. Then, everyone pulled out their fluorite, which emitted a dazzling white light, illuminating the surrounding darkness. The group continued to descend. 1,500 feet, 2,300 feet, and so on. An hour later, they had reached a depth of several thousand feet. Then, the dark blue sea of death reappeared before everyone. The endless white bones beneath the sea startled everyone aboard the Zhejian. Some felt like retreating, but most were even more excited, their greed intensifying. Zhao Sheng paid no attention to the others. His gaze was focused solely on the black mist swirling in the sea below. It was especially dense near the edge of the coral reef. However, this wasn't the case everywhere. Zhao Sheng discovered a winding, 2-foot-wide escape path within the black mist. The path ended in a white glowing underwater cave, nestled at the base of a steep coral reef. The black mist was clearly terrified of the escape path, not daring to intrude even a fraction. Zhao Sheng had discovered this escape path 2 years ago, but at that time, his cultivation was still shallow and he hadn't considered venturing alone. Now, with a bunch of cannon fodder scouting the way, it was a waste to use them. The others, lacking Zhao Sheng's talent, couldn't detect the black mist, but something as obvious as the cave couldn't be hidden from these eyes. It was clear the treasure lay within. Seeing this, Some impatient individuals immediately swam towards it, eager to seize the opportunity. Seeing others move, the others rushed to follow, fearing they would be caught short and the treasure would be taken. In that moment, they seemed to have forgotten the unknown dangers of the cave, where others had already died. Highlander tried to move, but someone suddenly grabbed her arm from behind. Turning to see it was Zhao Sheng, Highlander felt a sudden sense of relief, her body instantly relaxing. Zhao Sheng waved for her to follow him, then pulled her towards the escape route. Nearby, Gui Zinshu observed the scene. His eyes rolled, then quietly sank. A quarter of an hour later, when the others had already entered the cave, Zhao Sheng and Highlander finally reached the entrance. Zhao Sheng peered inside and was astonished to see the cave's straight, spacious passage. The walls were spotless from top to bottom, without a speck of dust, let alone any growth like seaweed or coral. Fist-sized pearls, gleaming white, studded the sides of the passage. The cave was clearly man-made. Zhao Sheng sensed the area for a moment and found no danger. So, he pulled Highlander along and swam inside. After entering the cave, the two swam 2 or 3 miles, still unable to see the end of the passage. They only sensed the growing spiritual energy around them. Half an hour later, they finally reached the end of the passage, a wall of light radiating a blinding white light that made it impossible to see what lay beyond. Zhao Sheng nodded to Highlander, and the two, arm in arm, rushed into the wall. Snap! Zhao Sheng felt as if he had broken through a membrane. His vision brightened, and his body suddenly felt lighter, the heavy pressure of the water dissipating. Looking up, Zhao Sheng discovered he was in an underground cavern. The cave was dry, devoid of any seawater. The spiritual energy here was incredibly rich, at least twice as high as that in the passageway. The caverns covered approximately 5 or 6 acres, and scattered across the surrounding rock walls were exposed spiritual stones of varying sizes, gleaming with a faint gray luster. Spirit stone mine, Highlander couldn't help but exclaim. Zhao Sheng was also astonished. He hadn't expected a spiritual stone mine to exist here, and a mine of the extremely rare, pure yin quality. Suddenly, someone behind them excitedly shouted, "Shit, I'm rich!" Gui Zinshu, overwhelmed with joy, forgot everything else and strode past them, running to the deepest part of the cavern. There, towering before it was a jade wall of spiritual stone, 3 meters long and over 2 meters high. Li Mu and the others stood before it, pointing and talking. Zhao Sheng was surprised that there was no danger in the cave. He hadn't forgotten that Hai Dafu and the others had left and never returned. Zhao Sheng took a look around and suddenly frowned, wondering in his heart, where are the bodies of Hai Dafu and others? After thinking for a while, he had no clue, so Zhao Sheng simply took Highlander to the Lingxi Jade Wall. Halfway through, Zhao Sheng saw Li Mu, Gui Zinshu and others sitting cross-legged, their eyes shining, looking at the jade disc with an obsessed expression, as if there was an infinite attraction on it. Zhao Sheng's heart calmed down when he saw this, and he sensed it again, but still did not sense any danger. He looked up at the jade disc, and after a careful examination, he felt countless lights and shadows flashing before his eyes. After staring again, his heart suddenly jumped. Zhao Sheng was slightly startled, and hurriedly closed his eyes to block his sight. After returning to normal, he opened his eyes again. At this time, he no longer looked directly at the jade disc, but strode forward and began to look at Li Mu and others. At this time, Li Mu's face was rosy, his eyes were obsessed, and his expression was extremely happy. There were spots of golden light on his body, and an extremely sharp aura was emanating from his body, and it was gradually getting stronger. It seemed that he was gaining enlightenment. Although the performance of others was slightly different, they also looked like they had gained a lot of understanding. Seeing this, Zhao Sheng's heart moved secretly, and suddenly a strange idea came to his mind. This jade bee seems to be a treasure. At this moment, Highlander suddenly exclaimed and shouted, "Ah! I feel dizzy." Zhao Sheng turned around suddenly and saw Highlander's body shaking and almost falling. He hurriedly stepped forward to support the other party, and asked with concern, "What did you see just now?" Highlander fell into Zhao Sheng's arms, her face flushed, and she seemed a little shy. She whispered, "No, nothing." Zhao Sheng's eyes flickered at this, but he didn't question her further. He simply told her not to look at the jade disc too much and then gave her another task: keep an eye on Li Mu and the others, and report any abnormalities immediately. Highlander nodded softly, agreeing. After comforting her, Zhao Sheng focused his gaze. It was then that he noticed a surprising number of strange scratches on the ground near the jade disc. They varied in depth, as if made by fingers. Some ran straight, others curved, and some had bizarre lines, densely packed throughout the area. He raised his eyebrows and touched these marks with his fingers. He felt a sudden surge of inspiration, and countless vague visions reflected in his soul sea. Suddenly, Zhao Sheng had a sudden epiphany. These marks and lines must have been left by cultivators who had previously comprehended the jade disc. Most of these marks were left by cultivators who had suddenly grasped something from the jade disc and, fearing to forget it, had left these markings on the ground nearby. Of course, most of the carvings may be useless, but there are few that can inspire those who will comprehend the immortal jade disc later. Zhao Sheng was wary of this strange jade disc, but he didn't care about these carvings. Immediately, he spent half an hour to explore all the carvings, memorizing all the inspirations and insights in his mind, regardless of whether they were useful or not, or whether he understood them or not. After doing this, Zhao Sheng's eyes flashed, and he tried to look at the jade disc. When his eyes met the jade disc, Zhao Sheng's mind was filled with inspiration like a spring, and countless inexplicable insights surged in his heart. Unconsciously, his exposed skin turned crimson, the vortex of spiritual power in his body suddenly accelerated, and a blue spiritual light emerged from behind him. After a moment, Zhao Sheng shouted softly, his eyes narrowed, his eyelids quickly closed, and his face relaxed. He took a long breath and murmured, "What a powerful jade disc, so weird." Just now, countless strange ideas came to his mind, and he unconsciously produced one strange picture after another, including the fairy palace and sacred mountain towering in the clouds, the free sword fairy slaying demons and eliminating monsters, and the endless sea of blood with corpses piled up like mountains. These illusory and real pictures all suddenly emerged after he saw the JB. He was not sure whether these pictures were illusions or real scenes that existed in history, just like he didn't know who made this JB. But one thing is certain, this JB is either an ancient treasure or a rare evil object. Suddenly, Zhao Sheng's heart jumped again. This feeling came abruptly and inexplicably, and Zhao Sheng could not find anything wrong. Then, his mind moved, and his mind probed into the purple mansion. What is this? Zhao Sheng was horrified to see that a black figure had appeared on the soul sea. At some point, the lower end of the figure was connected to the soul sea, and strands of soul water were absorbed into the body of this figure. In a blink of an eye, the black figure became much clearer, and he could barely make out the facial features. He looked like an old man. Zhao Sheng just thought of getting rid of this figure, but suddenly a large amount of black light shot out from the black figure's body. The next moment, Zhao Sheng's head suddenly sank, and his eyes went black. In a daze, he found himself in a vast starry sky. The stars were shining in the void, and at this moment, there were densely packed meteorites of different sizes and shapes under his feet. This side of the world was surprisingly an endless sea of meteorites. Chapter 167, The Exiled Immortal Soul and Destruction. Beneath the boundless starry sky, countless falling stars slowly rotated, and a sea of meteorites snaked endlessly across the void. Faced with such a vast and awe-inspiring spectacle, a single individual seemed insignificant. But to Zhao Sheng, the starry sky and the sea of meteorites were completely irrelevant. For, not far from him, in the void, stood a black-robed Taoist priest with blue eyes, silver hair, skin as white as jade, and strikingly handsome features. Furthermore, his aura was ethereal and transcendent. He gazed at him with an extremely strange gaze. "Sir, are you?" Zhao Sheng was startled, stepping back half a step, staring at the other person with extreme caution. "Are you also from the spirit clan? How come you look so ugly?" the black-robed Taoist priest suddenly asked curiously. Zhao Sheng was stunned by this. In all his lifetimes, no one had ever called him ugly, and in terms of appearance alone, he was the most handsome in this life. To call him ugly, what kind of aesthetic was that? Yet, seeing the black-robed Taoist's unparalleled handsomeness, he couldn't help but feel inferior. Zhao Sheng's thoughts raced as he pondered his response. Suddenly, the black-robed figure exclaimed in surprise, "Hey, you're not a pure-blooded spirit, but a bastard." No wonder, bastard was truly a bad word. Zhao Sheng's anger flared, his face darkening as he sneered, "Your words are far too harsh." The black-robed Taoist, upon hearing this, regarded Zhao Sheng with a strange expression. "Boy, how dare you speak to me like that? Could it be that I've been gone so long that the spirits have forgotten me? Or is there something else?" Without waiting for Zhao Sheng's response, he inquired, "Boy, is your world the Xianzhu realm? How many years have passed since the void spirit calendar?" Zhao Sheng's heart trembled, and countless thoughts raced through his mind. Ultimately, he decided to tell the truth. This world is indeed the Xianzhu realm. However, I've never heard of the Zuling calendar. Our world's calendar has been the Taiyi calendar since ancient times. Since ancient times? Taiyi calendar. Taiyi spirit realm. So that's how it is. I've finally been defeated, the black-robed Taoist muttered to himself, his expression extremely lost. After a long pause, he suddenly sighed with a sense of loss and said, "Boy, what's your name? How many members of the spirit clan are left in this world?" Zhao Sheng activated his danger perception, sensing that the person opposite him was not in danger. Reassured, he coldly asked, "Before asking this, shouldn't you first identify yourself? And why have you invaded my soul sea without reason?" As soon as these words left his mouth, the black-robed Taoist's face changed, and he snorted, "Youngster, if you want to know my name, I'll see if you have the qualifications." With that, a huge azure giant, towering to the sky and earth, with a body of indescribable size, suddenly appeared in the void behind the black-robed Taoist. An immense chill erupted from the giant, freezing the galaxy in an instant. The immense power, overwhelming, filled the vast starry sky. Seeing such a magnificent spectacle, Zhao Sheng should have been terrified, but he still didn't sense any danger. Furthermore, for some reason, the more imposing the scene became, the more Zhao Sheng felt like laughing. Finally, he couldn't help but tease, "You are truly formidable. Are you planning to blast the entire sky apart, huh? Huh?" Seeing this, the black-robed Taoist waved his long sleeves, and the giant vision behind him vanished, returning to normal starry sky. He slowly retracted his murderous intent, then looked at Zhao Sheng with a strange gaze. "Are you really not afraid?" "No, you can't kill me," Zhao Sheng said confidently. The black-robed Taoist suddenly shuddered, his demeanor changing dramatically. He smiled faintly and suddenly said, "I am one of the 36 spirit lords of the spirit clan. My true name is Qi Wuang." "What's your name, young man?" Zhao Sheng clasped his fists and said, "My name is Zhao Sheng. What advice do you have for me, senior? I see you are also from the spirit clan, and you have decent aptitude. Would you like to become my disciple?" Zhao Sheng hadn't expected such a dramatic change in the other party's attitude, and was speechless for a moment. "What? Although I don't know your situation in the Xianzhu realm, I can guarantee that if you become my disciple, you will be able to roam the starry sea and ascend to heaven. Don't miss out, young man." What a boast. Zhao Sheng didn't believe the black-robed man's words. However, out of caution, he still asked, "May I ask, senior, what is the spirit race? What realm is the spirit master? And how did senior end up like this?" After hearing this, the black-robed Taoist said in anger, "HMPH. You have the blood of the spirit race, but you have never heard of our spirit race. Taiyi Immortal Palace, what cruel means. It is really a great shame." Zhao Sheng saw that the other party talked about mysterious things but avoided talking about himself, and his suspicion grew stronger, so he tentatively asked, "Senior, is there something you invited me to come here for? And what is this galaxy?" "This place is the result of a thought of this deity. It is just a world of divine thoughts that was specially conjured for you and me to meet. As for why this deity showed up to meet you, kid, it's because of your spirit race blood. Otherwise, how could this deity be willing to waste his divine thoughts to pull you in when he was sleeping soundly?" The black-robed Taoist said in a bad tone. "Senior, how about you send me back?" Zhao Sheng asked tentatively. "HMPH, too late. I thought you were a spirit, so I used your burning thoughts to create this illusory world. I was wrong. Could this be God's will?" The black-robed Taoist stared at Zhao Sheng with a complicated expression. Zhao Sheng's heart skipped a beat when he saw this, and he had a bad premonition. Zhao Sheng's eyes flickered a few times, and he was about to say something when the vast starry sky suddenly shook, and a crisp crack sound was heard from the boundless void. Then, countless cracks appeared out of thin air, and the starry sky was like a mirror, as if it would shatter in the next second. "Impossible, this world of divine thoughts is about to collapse," the black-robed Taoist, who had originally looked indifferent, cried out in disbelief when he saw this scene. Zhao Sheng was also shocked when he saw the world collapsing and destroying. He didn't know what had happened, but seeing the black-robed Taoist's panic, Zhao Sheng thought it was a good thing. How is it possible? With my former tribulation realm cultivation, even if only a shred of my spirit remains, it would be impossible for anyone below the spirit transformation realm to shake it. Let alone destroy this world. The black-robed Taoist watched the stars in the sky dim and dissipate, vast swathes of the world crumbling and annihilating. His face paled drastically. Zhao Sheng calmed his mind, concentrating his attention, his expression suddenly becoming strange. Strange. I don't sense any danger. At that moment, the black-robed Taoist sighed heavenward. It seems my fate has run out. I'm doomed. Well. Consider how majestic my clan's spiritual master was, roaming across 3,000 realms in his lifetime. Now, only a shred of my spirit remains, barely lingering. Never mind. My true form perished countless years ago, and now it's simply the end of its fate. The black-robed Taoist experienced only a moment of despair before accepting the outcome calmly. Boy, since fate has allowed you and me to meet, it means we are destined to meet. I have an unfinished business to entrust to you. The black-robed Taoist turned his gaze to Zhao Sheng and said solemnly. Zhao Sheng declined. I am small and weak, and I am afraid I can't bear the important responsibility of the senior. Don't worry. This is not difficult, you just need to do it. And as a reward, I will tell you the location of an immortal's mansion and a complete return to void technique. It's a pity that before I died, I deliberately erased all the memories of my clan's techniques. Otherwise, giving you 10 or 8 sets of magical skills manuals would be a piece of cake. After the black-robed Taoist finished speaking, he waited confidently for the kid opposite to agree. What unfinished business does that senior have? I am all ears. Zhao Sheng was very suspicious, but he couldn't resist the temptation after all, so he agreed. Haha, don't be so nervous. You can do your best, and it doesn't matter if you can't. What I ask you to do is very simple, that is, to pass on a message to any member of the spirit clan who is above the nascent soul realm. Senior, you say. Remember this, there is a primordial sea god being conceived in the Xianzhu realm. Remember, except for the people of the spirit race, you must not tell this to anyone, the black-robed Taoist warned in a serious tone. I've remembered it, Zhao Sheng nodded and said with embarrassment. Senior also knows that although I have the blood of the spirit race, I have never seen any member of the spirit race. In my opinion, the spirit race is either extinct or extremely rare in the Xianzhu realm. It is almost impossible to meet a Yuanying ancestor. It doesn't matter. As long as you pass the words to the next generation before you die, your descendants will meet one day. Zhao Sheng was speechless. At this time, the galaxy world was close to complete collapse. The black-robed Taoist sighed, stretched out his hand and pulled out a slate that looked like gold and jade. The surface of the slate emitted a gray spiritual light. Then, he threw it lightly, and the slate suddenly shut out. Zhao Sheng naturally subconsciously grabbed the slate, but after a blur, it disappeared into the palm of his hand. The black-robed Taoist who did this suddenly became blurred and ethereal, as if he had lost the core that supported him. The next moment, he turned into a wisp of gray smoke and merged into the surrounding void. Boom! This world finally shattered into pieces like glass and collapsed. A rolling gray torrent suddenly rushed out of the void and submerged Zhao Sheng in an instant. All these changes happened too quickly for Zhao Sheng to react. But at the moment when the torrent submerged him, Zhao Sheng suddenly felt an incomparable sense of danger in his heart. No, I've been fooled. However, just as he was feeling regretful, he suddenly heard a shrill scream. Ah! This is, as the scream ended, the rolling gray torrent turned into a gray line in the blink of an eye and was sucked into Zhao Sheng's chest. The next second, his eyes blurred, and his mind returned to the purple mansion, and he saw that the boundless soul sea was calm, and the water was clear and deep. At this time, Zhao Sheng was very surprised to see that the Book of 100 Worlds was slowly sinking into the soul sea. The Book of 100 Worlds actually appeared. What is the origin of the black-robed Taoist priest? Zhao Sheng was a little confused for a while. As this thought came to his mind, a sentence suddenly emerged in his mind. Earth-level achievement, collecting a wisp of the remaining thoughts of the exiled immortal. This sentence contained so much information that Zhao Sheng didn't react for a moment. In his previous life, he had exhausted all his efforts, spent all his thoughts, and even reduced his lifespan, and died halfway, narrowly avoiding the destruction of the Zhou family. And this was only a Zhuan-level achievement. Now, he had obtained a D-level achievement without any effort. This really is. I have to thank the residual soul of a certain unlucky exiled immortal. After thinking about it, Zhao Sheng asked himself again, Bai Shishu, what level of existence is the exiled immortal? But this time, the 100 Worlds book did not respond at all. Zhao Sheng repeated it twice, but the 100 Worlds book still did not respond. Seeing this, Zhao Sheng was unwilling to give up and his mind moved. The 100 Worlds book finally moved. He saw its pages unfold, and the personal data panel appeared in Zhao Sheng's mind. Name, Zhao Dingshan, Zhao Sheng, lifespan 20/149 realm, 7th level of key refining occupation, 2nd level talisman master constitution, 3 spiritual roots of water, gold and fire, spirit bloodline, evolving, talents, bullet time, danger perception, absolute rationality, skills, cultivation method, Zuanin heavy water art, great accomplishment, talisman overlay, great accomplishment, spells, god-slaying sword intent, water mine method, refraction method, talisman making, water escape talisman, invisibility talisman, god condensing talisman, water mine talisman, phantom escape talisman, gray. Zhao Sheng's eyes flashed, and he suddenly noticed the 3 words evolving. He remembered that the spirit bloodline was originally followed by the word remnant, but now, Zhao Sheng couldn't help but wonder whether the outcome would be favorable to him after the evolution of the spirit race's bloodline was complete. According to the information he knew, the spirit race and the human race had once fought a great battle in the Xianzhu realm, and the final result was that the spirit race was defeated and expelled from the Xianzhu realm. As a result, from ancient times to the present, spirit race hybrids like him have always been hostile to pure-blooded humans. If the concentration of his bloodline is further increased, and he becomes a Taoist priest in black robes with blue eyes, silver hair, and skin as white as jade, then, his end will not be much better. Thinking of this, Zhao Sheng's face was a little gloomy. As soon as Zhao Sheng's mind left the purple mansion, he felt his body shaking violently, and at the same time, Helenor's anxious cry came to his ears, "Wake up! Zhao Shen, what's wrong with you?" Zhao Sheng opened his eyes and found himself lying on the ground, and Helenor was looking at him in panic. "I'm fine." As he spoke, he immediately stood up from the ground. At the same time, he quickly glanced around, and what he saw shocked him. At this time, Li Mu, Gui Zinshu and others collapsed on the ground in a mess, without any breath. Everyone's face was as pale as snow, and their eyes were dull like dead fish, but the terrifying thing was that their expressions were extremely intoxicated and satisfied, as if they had seen the supreme truth. At this moment, the ground under them suddenly became extremely soft, as if it had turned into a swamp. These corpses were sinking little by little, and in the process of sinking, countless gray thin lines grew out from the ground, and quickly crawled all over the corpses, wrapping them into cocoons. This. Dad. After witnessing all this, Highlander was so frightened that her face turned pale, and tears burst out of her eyes. In the blink of an eye, she cried like a tearful person. Zhao Sheng sighed in his heart. After seeing this scene, how could he not know the final fate of Haidafu and others? No wonder there were no corpses of the people who came in before. It turned out that they all became food. Zhao Sheng was curious. What kind of monster insects are these thin lines? What is their relationship with a black-robed Taoist? As he was thinking about this, at this moment, a fine cracking sound suddenly came from the spirit stone jade disc. Zhao Sheng turned his head abruptly and saw that countless cracks had appeared on the surface of the jade disc. The next second, the jade disc collapsed, and the rubble splashed everywhere. Finally, there was a pile of spirit stones of different sizes in its place. Chapter 168 Breaking Out of the Foggy Sea. Splash. Before he could react, another splash of water echoed from behind him. Zhao Sheng turned and saw that the light wall of the passage had disappeared for some reason, and now a large amount of seawater was rushing in. The powerful water pressure at the bottom of the sea forced the seawater to shoot in, spraying out in a thick, straight column. In just a few breaths, the water in the underground cave reached his waist. Highlander hugged Zhao Sheng's arm in fear. Zhao Sheng twitched slightly, but when he saw that there was no twitch, he let it go. Soon, the underground cave was flooded by the sea. Half an hour later, Zhao Sheng and Highlander swam out of the underwater cave. Gazing at the dark blue ocean under the sea, Zhao Sheng's pupils suddenly shrank. He was surprised to find that the black aura of death on the dark blue flame had disappeared. As for why it disappeared, Zhao Sheng suspected that it was related to the black-robed Taoist. Yam Kai, the short and fat old man, and others who were waiting on the boat had never expected Zhao Sheng and his companions to return so soon. Upon learning of the tragic deaths, everyone was stunned, especially the short and stout old man, who was in disbelief. But Zhao Sheng had no reason to lie. After 3 days of waiting in vain, the short and stout old man finally accepted the devastating news. As expected of a ship's master, he immediately set his sights on the Dafu. After all, the Dafu was a treasure-whaling ship, easily fetching 200,000 to 300,000 spirit stones. Relying on his 9th-level key refining cultivation, the short and stout old man made no secret of his intention to seize the Dafu. Unfortunately, he was unaware of the existence of a swindler on his side. Therefore, when the short and stout old man tried to subdue the others, Zhao Sheng beheaded him with a single blow, and he was promptly killed. Witnessing Zhao Sheng's unfathomable strength, Yan Kai, Zuli, and the 3 survivors of the Zhejian ship's early key refining stage immediately pledged their loyalty to the Lord. After this brief incident, Zhao Sheng's biggest challenge became how to escape the foggy seas. Due to a shortage of manpower, he was forced to abandon the Zhejian ship. While the Zhejian wasn't as good as the Dafu, a ship capable of ocean commerce couldn't be much worse. Even 100,000 spirit stones wouldn't normally be enough to build one. Unfortunately, Zhao Sheng only had 7 men, and running the Dafu was already the limit. He simply couldn't afford the Zhejian. For the next 2 months, Zhao Sheng's behavior baffled everyone. Apart from training and sleeping, he spent his time diving into the sea, his activities unclear. When Helena questioned him, he only mumbled something about searching for a way out. Gradually, everyone noticed a change in Zhao Sheng's features. His eyes had originally been black, rimmed with a blue halo. But after a month, they had transformed into a pair of clear, sky-like blues. His skin grew brighter day by day, finally becoming as smooth and silky as white jade, as if coated with a layer of jade cream. This drew Helena's admiration, and the affection in her eyes grew ever more palpable, a feeling even a blind man could discern. 3 months later, the weather turned colder, the sea breeze picked up, and the fog thinned slightly. One day, as the sun set, a twilight glow filled the sky. The Dafu sailed to a point in the sea and slowly came to a stop. Zhao Sheng stood in the helm cabin, steering the wheel with a serious expression. "Lower the sail," he commanded, and Yan Kai and 2 others ran to the mast, scrambling up and down to quickly lower the sail. "Seal the hold, prepare the spirit stone furnace." Bang, bang, bang. The Dafu's hatches were slammed shut one by one, leaving the decks deserted. Meanwhile, Highlander stood solemnly before the spirit stone furnace in the lower hold. "Open the spirit stone furnace." As Zhao Sheng gave the order, Highlander immediately pulled out a storage bag and poured a large bag of pure yin spirit stones into the furnace, filling the chamber, more than a person's height. Due to a shortage of manpower, they had to resort to burning spirit stones. While a bit wasteful, Zhao Sheng had little else but an abundance of pure yin spirit stones. That jade disc alone would be enough to burn for half a year. Buzz! As the spirit stone furnace poured forth a flood of spiritual energy, the hull of the Dafu was quickly engulfed in a film of light. Then, the entire ship slowly sank beneath the sea. Zhao Sheng expertly maneuvered the Dafu, descending to a depth of 1,200 feet. At this depth, the surroundings were pitch black, and marine life was exceptionally sparse. However, Zhao Sheng knew of an undersea current. This was the way out he had spent 2 months discovering. Just as the Dafu had been dragged into the misty sea by the spirit whale, Zhao Sheng now employed a similar method, harnessing the current's force to drift out. This method had a high success rate, though it took a while. Once the Dafu was ensconced in the current, Zhao Sheng released the rudder, allowing the current to push the ship slowly toward the unknown. The days underwater were dull and long. While the others waited anxiously, Zhao Sheng, devouring the greasy spirit whale meat, practiced daily in seclusion. 3 months passed in a flash. Helena, Yan Kai, Zuli, and the others could wait no longer. These days felt like imprisonment, too tedious. Helena and the others visited Zhao Sheng for 3 days straight, their words and their meanings clear. Zhao Sheng calculated the time and found a moment to swim out of the boat, surfacing. Gazing at the star-filled sky and the crescent moon, Zhao Sheng couldn't help but slap the sea hard, sending a massive splash. Finally out, an hour later, the Dafu surfaced. The hatch opened, and Helena and the others rushed to the deck eagerly. Upon seeing the boundless waters and the bright moon reflected in them, everyone cheered loudly, some even weeping with joy. That night, no one slept. Delicious food and wine, brought from the Zhijin, flowed onto the deck. Everyone feasted and drank to their heart's content, basking in the breathtaking seascape outside. 2 days later, after relieving the stress of their near-death experience, they began formal discussions on how to return to the Shattered Star Sea. While it was supposed to be a discussion, Zhao Sheng was actually the sole decision-maker. Although Highlander was the heir to the Dafu, Zhao Sheng was the backbone of the group. After escaping the Misty Sea, the first thing to do was to determine their location. However, this area was unfamiliar. Zhao Sheng had 3 golden navigation plates, but none of them could identify the topographical features that matched the area. While the plates were useless, Zhao Sheng wasn't stumped. The main islands of the Broken Star Sea were mostly located in the north. If they couldn't determine their location, they simply headed north. Having made their decision, the Dafu hoisted its sails again and turned north. The strong winds blew the sails high, and the treasure ship, powered by the wind, sailed slowly, then quickly, towards the distant horizon. 1 day, 2 days. Every day, Zhao Sheng would command his cloud boat to explore the surrounding waters for hundreds of miles. His efforts paid off. After 2 weeks, Zhao Sheng stumbled upon an island. This island also helped them determine their location. They were located at the edge of the Alien Sea, only 300 nautical miles away from the nearest dragon scale level spiritual island, Zhao Island. Chapter 169, Wind Rises on Zhao Island. Upon returning to the Dafu, Zhao Sheng immediately gathered everyone for a brief meeting. Everyone was unanimous about the Dafu's next destination, opting for Zhao Island first. The primary reason was the sheer number of alien sea pirates, making any group they encountered extremely difficult to resist. Let's head to Zhao Island. With Zhao Sheng's final word, the Dafu turned, pushing through the seawater and rapidly heading northwest. 4 days later, to the cheers of Highlander and the others, the Dafu finally reached Zhao Island. As soon as the treasure ship docked, a dock steward arrived early. Without prompting, he diligently handled the island registration for Zhao Sheng and the other 7. In the Broken Star Sea, registration is a rigid rule upon arrival. This policy serves many purposes, the most important of which is to prevent pirates or sea creatures from infiltrating the island. In previous demonic tide wars, Spirit Island had been lost numerous times due to spies or insiders infiltrating. The most glaring example, and the one with the most severe consequences, was the flooding of Longshao Island 1,000 years ago. That incident, due to a single individual's actions, resulted in the deaths of millions of islanders who became victims of the sea. The Dafu's characteristics were so obvious that anyone who frequented the docks knew at a glance that it was a treasure-whaling vessel, presumably commanded by a Foundation establishment master. They dared not neglect it. After all, the owner of Zhao Island was only at the Foundation establishment stage. The arrival of a Foundation establishment master on the island demanded the utmost respect and impeccable courtesy. However, after the steward completed the registration, he wondered why there were only 7 people on the ship, and the leader, young and blue-eyed, looked nothing like a Foundation establishment master. Strange, very strange. He secretly noted the incident and planned to report it immediately. After the steward left, Zhao Sheng stood on the deck, silently surveying the dock and the island. He had the impression that the dock was large, but the ships were small. The dock and the streets were bustling, at least with many people. There were only 2 ships as large as the Dafu at the dock, less than 10 smaller ones, and dozens, if not hundreds, of smaller vessels, too numerous to mention. Zhao Sheng surveyed his surroundings, unaware that he was being secretly observed. In a private room on the 3rd floor of a restaurant facing the dock, a distinguished young man in purple leaned against a window, gazing out at the Dafu from afar, perfectly capturing Zhao Sheng and the others. Tisk tisk. A whaling treasure ship has arrived on Zhao Island today. I wonder if it caught any spirit whales? Spirit whale meat is in high demand these days, Dong Zhang muttered in amazement, mentally pondering how to make a small fortune. He was a 3rd-generation member of the Dong family, a 4th-level key refining cultivator. The Dong family was a foundation-building family on Zhao Island. The patriarch was not only the lord of the island but also the leader of the 3 foundation-building cultivators guarding the island, reaching the middle stage of foundation building. Beside Dong Zhang, Li Ziki smiled and said, "Brother Dong, don't be impatient. This treasure ship is manned by a foundation establishment cultivator. Ancestor Dong and my master will definitely treat them to a feast. Even if they let up a bit, the crumbs of meat that spill from their hands will be more than enough for us to eat. Dong Zheng suddenly understood and excitedly slammed the table. Brother Li is right. We must report this to our ancestors as soon as possible, he shouted outside. Someone, wait, Li Ziqi immediately stopped him. Seeing Dong Zheng looking over, Li Ziqi said, it's best to first find out the origin, name, and crew of this ship. The more detailed the better. That way, we can be more targeted. Brother Li, you're so thoughtful. Dong Zheng praised him, then turned and ordered his men who had entered the private room to go out and gather information about the Dafu ship. Soon, the dock manager was led into the private room. Upon meeting the two young masters, Dong Zheng and Li Ziqi, the steward dropped to his knees. Facing their inquiries, he dared not conceal a single detail, revealing everything he knew. Upon learning that there were only 7 people aboard the Dafu, Dong Zheng and Li Ziqi were deeply surprised, instantly realizing something was amiss. What if? After sending the steward away, there was a moment's silence. Dong Zheng then asked playfully, Brother Li, what are your thoughts on this? Li Ziqi said gravely, we must not be careless. Find out the truth first. That's right. The ship isn't going anywhere for now. If it's a dragon crossing the river, we'll just treat it with respect. But if it's a lame shrimp? Haha. You know, the alien seas are not peaceful. Meanwhile, Zhao Sheng was unaware that someone had already begun plotting against the Dafu. Out of caution, Zhao Sheng offered Yankai and Zuli generous rewards and instructed them to keep an eye on the other 3 early-stage key training cultivators and not allow them to disembark. Then, he found Helena and asked her about her next plan, or more precisely, what to do with the Dafu and the whale meat, blubber, and bones on board. Without Hai Dafu in charge, Helena alone could not manage the Dafu, not even with Zhao Sheng. And he was not interested in that. Although Helena was beautiful and had big breasts, she was not stupid. After all this time, she had already considered the matter of the Dafu. In her hands, the Dafu was like a child holding gold in a busy market, which could attract wolves and tigers at any time. So when Zhao Sheng asked about this, Helena spoke without hesitation. It turned out that Hai Dafu and his daughter were from the Su clan. Helena's opinion was to register the Dafu under the tutelage of the elders of this clan and get protection from them. The Su clan was an indigenous ethnic group in the Broken Star Sea. The clan members were bound by blood and lived together as a clan. They were known for their unity. The Su clan sailed the sea year-round, primarily hunting marine animals. They rarely stayed on islands, earning them the nickname Sea People. Zhao Sheng saw Highlander had already made up her mind, and he felt she was thoughtful. He stopped talking. He had already made up his mind. Once this matter was settled, he would return to Zhongzhou as soon as possible, unearth the backup plan left by his previous life, and quickly ascend to the Foundation establishment stage. That afternoon, Zhao Sheng accompanied Highlander off the boat and landed on Zhao Island. They arrived at a bustling market on the island. Highlander walked through 2 streets and quickly spotted their destination, Haizhen Pavilion. Haizhen Pavilion, a shop specializing in marine treasures, had branches on various spiritual islands in the Broken Star Sea. Its proprietors were the Su clan. Upon entering Haizhen Pavilion, Highlander immediately caught the owner's attention. Long crimson hair was the most distinctive feature of Su clan cultivators. Unwilling to neglect his own immortal master, the owner immediately appeared and greeted them, graciously ushering them into the backyard. An hour later, Highlander left Haizhen Pavilion with a beaming smile. Just now, she had passed the news of the Defuheo back to Kaianzhou City through special channels. The elders would receive the news within 2 weeks at the latest, or 3 or 4 days at the earliest. By then, they would surely send someone to Zhao Island to take over the Defuheo. Thank you to book friend number 2505 for the 5,000 coin reward. Baimuyi thanked you. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 170 The Legendary Person. Having completed her important task, Helena was in high spirits. On the way back to the dock, they passed a restaurant. The aroma of food wafting from the restaurant immediately piqued her appetite. Helena grabbed Zhao Sheng's arm and walked inside, excitedly saying, I haven't had a proper meal in years. I'm dying of cravings. Let's go in and have a feast. Zhao Sheng, who had nearly vomited from eating whale meat in recent years, naturally didn't object. The two of them entered the restaurant and sat down at a table in the first-floor lobby without choosing a place. They called the waiter and ordered everything they had. It didn't matter if they couldn't finish it, there were 5 more people on the boat. Seeing 2 distinguished guests, the waiter didn't hesitate. Soon, a variety of delicious dishes were brought to the table. Helena cheered, not caring about her appearance at all, picking up her chopsticks and digging in. Zhao Sheng ate much faster than her, but his speed was no less. The food arrived and was quickly devoured. Luckily, the restaurant was quick to serve, able to accommodate the two's rapid pace. Their appalling eating style immediately caught the attention of the diners nearby. Everyone turned their gazes, and for a moment, Zhao Sheng and Helena became the center of attention. Just then, Dong Zheng and Li Ziqi happened to come downstairs. They immediately spotted Zhao Sheng and Helena, intently eating. Huh? Red hair, Dong Zheng exclaimed in surprise, turning to meet Li Ziqi's gaze. Li Ziqi nodded slightly, and Dong Zheng immediately understood. They had just been discussing the Defuheo restaurant, only to encounter its owner right after descending. Could this be fate? Dong Zheng pondered as he descended. Passing through the first-floor lobby, he glanced at Zhao Sheng and Helena. The sight of Zhao Sheng's blue eyes sent a shudder through Dong Zheng's heart, and his steps stumbled. Seeing this, Li Ziqi stepped forward, grasping Dong Zheng's arm. Lowering his voice, he asked, "Junior brother Dong, are you alright?" "I'm fine. Let's talk outside." Dong Zheng's voice was slightly flustered. He secretly patted the back of Li Ziqi's hand and hurriedly led him out of the restaurant. At that moment, Zhao Sheng looked up, gazing at the 2 figures, their backs radiating a faint yellow light. A strange glint flashed in his eyes. He had only been on Zhao Island for a day and didn't know anyone. Why would someone be so hostile to him? Helena, who was standing nearby, noticed Zhao Sheng's unusual behavior and put down her chopsticks, asking, "Well, what's wrong with you?" "Nothing." "Eat first." Zhao Sheng thought for a moment, then beckoned over a servant. "Sir, what can I do for you?" The servant, young and seemingly alert, hurried over, respectfully awaiting Zhao Sheng's instructions. "Let me ask you, do you know the 2 people who just left?" "Who are they?" The servant's expression changed at Zhao Sheng's question, a look of embarrassment on his face. Seeing this, Zhao Sheng took out a gold leaf and slipped it into the servant's hand. The servant, having never seen such a tycoon act so boldly, instantly became furious, his defenses breaking. He glanced around, then quietly leaned over to Zhao Sheng's ear and whispered something. Elsewhere, Dong Zheng had just left the restaurant and hurriedly boarded the carriage with Li Ziqi. When the curtains were drawn, Li Ziqi asked in confusion, "Junior brother Dong, those 2 men didn't know us at all, let alone our plan. Why did you look so panicked just now?" "That's not like you at all." Dong Zheng took a deep breath, suppressing his throbbing emotions. Subconsciously, he whispered, "Senior brother Li, did you notice that man just now?" "Yes." "What? Is there something wrong?" Li Ziqi was filled with confusion. "He has blue eyes." Dong Zheng's voice was barely audible, as if afraid of being overheard. "Blue eyes, blue eyes." Li Ziqi repeated it twice, finding nothing strange. The indigenous races of the Broken Star Sea are numerous, and many of them have strange appearances. Like the inky black cunyu, the shrimp men with lobster claws, and the fish men with gills behind their ears, none of them are more bizarre than the blue eyes. Seeing that Li Ziqi still hadn't grasped the idea, Dong Zheng hurriedly whispered, "That legendary figure also has blue eyes." "Which one?" Li Ziqi instinctively asked back. Seeing this, Dong Zheng, anxious, hinted, "Think about it, it's the man who fell into Dragon Head Pass 1,000 years ago." Li Ziqi's heart skipped a beat, and a chill ran down his spine. That man was an absolute taboo in the Broken Star Sea's immortal cultivation world. Not only his life story, but even his name had been completely obliterated. No one dared to mention him, only referring to him as that man. "Are you saying that the man just now is related to that man?" Li Ziqi leaned over and whispered. Dong Zheng nodded at first, but then shook his head. Li Ziqi was confused by his strange behavior. At this moment, Dong Zheng's face revealed a greedy yet fearful grin. He whispered, "Brother Li, since you've heard of that man, you should know how wary the Star God Palace is of him. Now a man with blue eyes has appeared on Zhao Island. Don't you have any ideas, Brother Dong? If you have any ideas, just speak up. Don't keep us in suspense." Seeing that Li Ziqi was getting impatient, Dong Zheng quickly articulated his thoughts. Let's gather our forces and capture those 7 individuals as quickly as possible. Then, we'll bring him to Star God Island and present him to the Star God Palace. What do you think, Brother Li? Li Ziqi was stunned, but then his heart was moved. Following Dong Zheng's plan, the benefits would be numerous. The most obvious and immediate benefit would be the possession of the treasure whaling ship. But this benefit pales in comparison to the potential rewards from the Star God Palace. As the uncrowned king of the Shattered Star Sea, the Star God Palace boasts not only unparalleled status and unfathomable power, but also boasts exceptionally talented disciples. If they could secure admission to the Star God Palace through this opportunity, their futures would undoubtedly be boundless. Even if they couldn't, seizing the opportunity to establish a relationship with the Star God Palace would bring countless benefits to both the Dong family and Li Ziqi and his disciple. Li Ziqi's eyes welled with excitement at the thought. Dong Zheng, observing all this, smiled with satisfaction and took the opportunity to say, "This matter must be kept strictly confidential. You can only tell your master, and I'll only tell our ancestors and my father. Let the elders handle the rest. We've accomplished great things this time, and we'll all wait for our share of the rewards." Li Ziqi's eyes rolled, and he nodded with a smile. Dong Zheng was worried and reminded him again, "Keep your mouth shut. Before you hand that person over to the Star God Palace, the news must not be leaked, otherwise." Before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Li Ziqi. "I understand." Dong Zheng choked for a moment, and after taking a breath, he said, "I'm glad you understand." Chapter 171, Foundation Building and Killing. As Dong Zheng and his companions plotted to capture Zhao Sheng and his companions, Zhao Sheng learned from a servant their identities. One was the eldest son of the Dong family, the other a disciple of a Foundation establishment cultivator stationed on the island. Zhao Sheng finished his questions, then added another gold leaf and dismissed the servant. At this moment, Highlander put down his chopsticks and quietly asked, "Was there anything wrong with those two just now?" Zhao Sheng shook his head, "Nothing. I was just curious because they were also cultivators." "Oh," Highlander said, "no more questions," and resumed her meal. Zhao Sheng also picked up his chopsticks and, while seemingly eating, pondered Dong Zheng and his companions' intentions. Although he hadn't grasped the true reason, he was already on high alert. An hour later, the two finished their meal and packed their food into their storage bags. After paying the bill and leaving the restaurant, they quickly returned to the Defu Hao. The sun set, the moon rose, and darkness enveloped the sky. As night fell, the market on Zhao Island bustled for an hour or two. As night deepened, the lights in the market, streets, and docks gradually dimmed, and the island slowly fell silent. The moonlight was shimmering, the stars sparse, and wisps of mist gradually formed around the dock, shrouding the docked ships and blurring their presence. Just then, Zhao Sheng suddenly emerged from the cabin and stepped onto the deck. The night was dark and foggy, and the dock was deserted. But to Zhao Sheng, two shimmering, black figures, obscured by a cloud of mist, stood out against the sky. He looked up at the sky, clasped his fists with an expression of extraordinary seriousness, and said in a clear voice, "I wonder what brings you two masters so late at night? I am Zhao Sheng, and I beg you to show yourself." As he finished his words, a stern roar echoed from the air. "How did you know our whereabouts? My cloud sail can even deceive those of my level, so how could a key refining junior like you discover us?" They've already discovered our whereabouts. What are you still arguing about? We'll ask them after we capture him." A lazy, charming voice echoed from the sky, the meaning of which startled Zhao Sheng, and he quickly became alert. Just then, a man and a woman suddenly appeared, descending from the sky at a rapid speed. The man was white-haired and skinny, looking as if he could be blown away by a gust of wind. The woman, on the other hand, was as charming as a flower, with a graceful figure, and every move was captivating. Zhao Sheng glanced at the two and secretly cursed inwardly. Two Foundation establishment cultivators had appeared at the same time. This was trouble. "Junior Zhao Sheng, greetings to Senior Dong and Senior Lian. Zhao Sheng's pupils suddenly constricted upon seeing the two, and he solemnly saluted with his fists clasped. There were only 3 Foundation establishment cultivators on Zhao Island, and thinking of the two from the day before, Zhao Sheng immediately guessed their identities. "You recognize us too? That's not fair. You know our origins, but we're completely unfamiliar with you. We heard that a whaling treasure ship had arrived at Zhao Island during the day, and we thought we had fellow cultivators. Now it seems there are no fellow cultivators, but there is a handsome young man, the charming woman said with a smile, as if she had no hostility at all. But seeing the woman's charming smile, Zhao Sheng's heart chilled even more, as the two people's malice towards him became increasingly obvious. Seeing Zhao Sheng's wary face, the woman curled her lips slightly, and suddenly her expression changed and she said, "What a boring boy, fellow Taoist Lian Yu, why are you wasting your time talking to this kid?" The skeleton chuckled and said to Zhao Sheng grimly, "Boy, to avoid physical pain, I advise you to surrender." Zhao Sheng thought for a moment and said bitterly, "I have no grudge against you two seniors. Why did you rush here to capture me at night? Even if I die, I want to die with a clear conscience. Boy, it's okay to tell you. The only problem is that you have blue eyes." Before he finished speaking, countless yellow threads suddenly shot out from the white-haired old man's hands. The yellow threads were like living things, twisting and crisscrossing back and forth. In the blink of an eye, they formed a yellow silk net and rushed towards Zhao Sheng. Zhao Sheng narrowed his eyes, and his pupils shrank to the extreme. As the world slowed down countless times, vast balls of water light suddenly erupted from both of his hands. Then, the water light exploded, expanding into vast white mist. The mist generated frantically and surged outward, instantly enveloping the Dafu in the sky. At the same time, Zhao Sheng instantly disappeared, gathering his aura, and fled through the mist, away from the ship. The next moment, the world returned to normal. Looking for death, a white-haired old man roared in the mist, while a beautiful woman laughed in rage. A flash of yellow light instantly burst into the mist, and Zhao Sheng felt a sudden chill in his heart. Suddenly, a strong murderous intent came from behind him. Neither the spirit suppression talisman nor the invisibility talisman worked. Horrified, Zhao Sheng threw a second-level mind talisman backward without a second thought. Boom! A flash of lightning erupted from the watery clouds, creating a vast void in the mist. As the yellow light dispersed, a pink phoenix hairpin, gleaming with a sharp edge, flashed past Zhao Sheng. It flew another 2 feet before returning to pursue him. Zhao Sheng's forehead instantly broke out in a cold sweat, horrified that Lian Yu had predicted his escape direction. The white-haired Dongong's attack missed, his gaze icy. He snorted coldly, his spiritual sense surging wildly, instantly enveloping the entire Dafu. This person had concealed their cultivation level. It wasn't mid-stage foundation establishment, but late stage. Oh no, Zhao Sheng groaned inwardly as he sensed this powerful spiritual sense. However, he knew that any words or pleas for mercy would be futile. He could only flee into the sea, hoping to escape the two men's grasp. A divine light shone brightly in Zhao Sheng's eyes, his blue pupils suddenly transforming into an incomparably deep ocean. The world froze once again, and this time he violently expelled a mouthful of blood essence, which transformed into bloody mist that enveloped his entire body. The next moment, he was almost transformed into a streak of blood, vanishing in a flash. At the same moment, the white-haired Master Dong suddenly opened his hands, and a dense mass of yellow light swirled out from his 10 fingers. These light immediately transformed into crescent-shaped blades the size of palms, silently covering the entire Dafu. A series of puffs echoed, sending wood chips flying. The deck, the hold, the masts, wherever the blades landed, they were slashed with deep gashes. However, all his attacks missed, driving the white-haired Master Dong mad. Damn it! That brat got away. The two Foundation establishment cultivators were caught off guard by a single move, watching helplessly as a streak of blood, like a rainbow piercing the moon, suddenly shot out from the white mist, flying over 100 feet as if teleporting. Then, the bloody light dissipated, revealing Zhao Sheng. Zhao Sheng looked at the two people chasing him at high speed, suddenly revealed a contemptuous smile, and his body quickly fell into the sea, disappearing in the dark water in the blink of an eye. Chapter 172 Soul Mark. Chase, Master Dong roared in anger, and a vast yellow light emanated from his body. In an instant, he transformed into a streak of light, soaring to the spot where Zhao Sheng had fallen into the sea and plunging into the water. If he let a key refining junior slip through his grasp, how could he, a late-stage Foundation establishment ancestor, save his reputation? Seeing this, Lian Yu Sanren's eyes flashed with a strange light. With a delicate laugh, he tucked his spiritual artifact, the water phoenix hairpin, back into his hair and followed suit. With a ripple, the sea vanished. As Zhao Sheng entered the water, his body transformed into a nimble, enormous fish. With a gentle swing of his body, he suddenly shot down several feet. In a matter of seconds, he had dived over 20 feet beneath the surface. Suddenly, a powerful spiritual sense swept over him, and Zhao Sheng was startled. He felt a strong murderous intent coming from above. The spiritual sense was fixed on him, like a maggot on his tarsal bone, impossible to shake off. As a foundation establishment cultivator in his previous life, he naturally knew that if he couldn't escape the opponent's spiritual awareness, he would sooner or later be caught up and sing a song of Liang Lang. After all, Master Dong was a late foundation establishment cultivator. The difference in their cultivation levels was too great to be won by mere trickery. Forget about victory, even escaping the opponent's grasp would be a stroke of luck. As Zhao Sheng's mind flashed, the sea above him shone with a burst of yellow light. Countless yellow blades of light easily pierced through the thick water, slashing towards Zhao Sheng's head, chest, abdomen, and limbs. Zhao Sheng's face darkened, and without turning back, he quickly dived, unleashing 2 second-level mind talismans. Boom! 2 muffled explosions echoed above him. The sea within a radius of 70 to 80 feet suddenly began to boil and swirl, churning like water. Countless turbulent currents churned, and countless tiny bubbles filled the air, densely packed like foam. In an instant, the surrounding waters were a turbulent mess, the waters intensifying into a chaotic state. Zhao Sheng felt his spiritual awareness interrupted by the minds behind him. He snorted, and spiritual energy surged from his feet, transforming into powerful repulsive force, instantly accelerating his descent several times. He had already made up his mind, now was no time to hesitate. He would rather expend more spiritual energy than lose every second to escape the enemy's range. Otherwise, once the enemy caught up, it would be too late for him to escape. He remained confident in himself, however, the sea was his home turf. Seeing the boy trying to slip away, Donggong's eyes flashed coldly, and his hands, shrouded in yellow light, slashed downward fiercely. 2 massive blades of light flew out. As if ignoring the barrier of the water, the blades instantly crossed 20 feet and struck Zhao Sheng's back. As the blades approached, Zhao Sheng suddenly felt the overwhelming shadow of death. He shuddered and flung his hands back. From one hand, a massive, pitch-black turtle shell flew out, while from the other, a vast expanse of blue light emanated, transforming into layers of resilient water walls. Puff! The light blade sliced through the water wall with the effortless ease of a hot knife through butter. In an instant, the water wall was shattered and transformed into ordinary seawater. Simultaneously, the light blade collided with the turtle shell, cracking in two with a crack, completely destroying it. Having pierced 2 lines of defense, the light blade's speed drastically decreased, its size reduced by nearly half. Zhao Sheng showed no regret over the destruction of his turtle shield magical artifact. Without even glancing, he reached for the storage pouch at his waist and launched 2 pale blue mines, each as big as a skull, in unison, colliding with the light blade. Boom! The seawater exploded instantly, a blaze of lightning raging. The light blade flashed a few times before dissolving into a mere firefly. Seeing another defeat, Master Dong was instantly filled with shock and anger. In the Broken Star Sea, due to the environment they inhabit, immortal cultivators have always been most skilled in underwater combat. As a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator, Donggong had lived for nearly 200 years and witnessed countless underwater battles. But he had never encountered a sly little brat like Zhao Sheng. After a brief delay, Lian Yu Sanren also caught up with Donggong. Watching Zhao Sheng fleeing further and further, nearly escaping his spiritual sense, her eyes flashed with a strange light, and she transmitted a telepathic message. "Senior Brother Dong, that boy is so agile. I'm increasingly convinced he's related to that person, Chase." Upon hearing this, Donggong dived without hesitation, his figure ablaze with yellow light as he eagerly pursued Zhao Sheng. A distance of 20 feet would be a blink of an eye in the air, but underwater, it was undoubtedly much slower. With the blood of the spirit race, Zhao Sheng was a darling of the sea. With his spiritual energy, his underwater speed was not only comparable to Donggong and the others, but even slightly faster. During the pursuit, the 2 Foundation establishment cultivators launched several attacks, but they were all blocked by the talismans. Zhao Sheng's talisman seemed endless, and he generously flung them out to thwart the 2 men's pursuit. Faced with such a brazen young key-refining cultivator, Master Dong was furious. But in the unique underwater environment, he was powerless to harm Zhao Sheng. He could only direct his spiritual weapon to deliver a powerful blow to the young man, only if they were within 10 feet. The three of them gradually distanced themselves, and in a blink of an eye, they had descended to the depths of 1,000 feet. Here, in pitch darkness, sight was useless, and they could only rely on their spiritual sense to lock onto Zhao Sheng. Just then, Master Dong sensed the young man was about to escape his range. With a fierce vengeance, a flash of golden light suddenly shot out from between his eyebrows, fading into Zhao Sheng's back. The next moment, filled with shame and anger, Master Dong watched with resentment as the young man vanished from his consciousness. Seeing him like this, Lian Yu Sanren had suspicions, but she only added fuel to the fire, sending a telepathic message. "Senior brother Dong, that boy, did he escape?" Dong Gong gritted his teeth and said, "HMPH, he can't. I've already planted a soul mark on him. Even if he dives into the trench, I'll capture him." Lian Yu Sanren was shocked. The soul mark is a forbidden technique that kills 1,000 enemies while injuring 800 of your own. Using this forbidden technique requires the loss of a single strand of soul. And soul damage is one of the most difficult injuries to recover from, which clearly demonstrates Dong Guang's determination. Meanwhile, Zhao Sheng, having escaped death, remained undeterred, swimming ever deeper. He dove to the bottom of the sea in one breath, touching the sand and boulders. He quickly sank into the sand and released a soul-suppressing talisman, suppressing his aura to the utmost. Even after this, Zhao Sheng remained uneasy, a lingering sense of crisis lingering within him. After a few breaths, his body tensed up, his heart pounded, and the sense of crisis in his heart became stronger and stronger, as if the enemy would kill him at any time. "No!" Zhao Sheng suddenly emerged from the sand. Although he didn't know what method Dong Gong and the others had used, he realized that the other party could still track him. Zhao Sheng believed that his spiritual perception was correct. So he did not hesitate, pushed the ground hard, and his body suddenly shot out, escaping to a deeper and farther place with all his strength. He had just left this place for less than 20 breaths when Dong Guang suddenly rushed out from the darkness and appeared here. Sensing the rapidly receding soul mark, Dong Guang's heart was filled with anger. Damn it, just one step too late. Chapter 173 Unexplained Thunder Tribulation. After swimming over 200 miles in one breath, Zhao Sheng's sense of crisis eased slightly. But as soon as he stopped, the inexplicable sense of danger intensified rapidly as time passed. Zhao Sheng had no choice but to leave again and continue his escape. This pursuit and escape lasted for 3 days. During these 3 days, Zhao Sheng searched his body thoroughly, finally discovering a new soul mark on the 12th vertebra. After all, as a foundation establishment cultivator in his previous life, Zhao Sheng was well versed in soul marks, knowing how hidden and difficult they were to remove. Other key refining cultivators would be helpless even if they did find them, not to mention being unable to detect them. However, for Zhao Sheng, the soul mark was not invincible, it simply required a considerable amount of time to erase. And the means to do so was the divine slaying sword intent. At this moment, Zhao Sheng once again expressed his heartfelt gratitude to the extraordinary Master Yu. No, now he should be called Grand Ancestor Yu. Zhao Lingshan's memories revealed that Yu Qinghan had successfully ascended to the nascent soul stage over 120 years ago, becoming the new generation's guardian patriarch of the Xianyang sword sect due to her decisive killing spree and divine swordsmanship. She earned the nickname Female Sword Immortal. Zhao Sheng fled, repeatedly bombarding the soul mark with his divinely slashing sword intent. 2 months later, in an unnamed underwater cave, Zhao Sheng's face was pale, his clothes tattered, and dark circles formed under his eyes, revealing a look of exhaustion and distress. However, he didn't care for this at the moment. After 2 months of exhaustion, the soul mark had dimmed to its core, poised to collapse at any moment. The crucial moment had arrived. Zhao Sheng focused his full attention on the soul mark. A flash of sword light suddenly emerged from the depths of his purple mansion soul sea. The sword light flashed out of the purple mansion and, in a flash, struck the soul mark with a fierce blow. Crack! Zhao Sheng seemed to hear an invisible cracking sound. The mark flashed, shattered into countless points of light, and then vanished in the blink of an eye. Phew! Zhao Sheng finally breathed a sigh of relief, his burden lifted, and he felt an overwhelming sense of relief. He opened his eyes and turned his head to gaze into the distance, his gaze traversing the cave and the thick seawater. He seemed to see the furious expression of the mad, furious Dong Guang. "I'll remember this 2-month pursuit. I'll definitely avenge you," Zhao Sheng muttered to himself, his tense body relaxing as an intense feeling of exhaustion suddenly washed over him. A moment later, strings of bubbles began to rise from the cave. He was so exhausted. 3 days later, on a remote, deserted island, Zhao Sheng stood atop the highest cliff, gazing up at the sun just rising in the sky. As time passed, the sun slowly crested its zenith. Zhao Sheng, having completed his observations, took out the 3 golden navigation plates and carefully examined them. After considerable effort, combining information such as ocean currents, winds, marine life species, and the position of the sun, he finally determined his approximate location. He had already crossed the second island chain and was roughly in the middle of the outer sea. Within a radius of 5,000 nautical miles, there were numerous small and medium-sized islands, including perhaps 5 or 6 spiritual islands. After a cup of tea, Zhao Sheng thoughtfully put away the golden navigation board. He surveyed the surrounding sea and the blazing sun, narrowed his eyes, adjusted his course, and leaped into the sea, quickly disappearing into the depths. Along the way, Zhao Sheng grabbed a first-level spotted seahorse for transportation. He avoided ships whenever he encountered them, and visited deserted islands, where he would build a fire and grill fish to fill his stomach and replenish his spiritual energy. 2 weeks later, Zhao Sheng appeared in the waters near a remote island. This island wasn't as prosperous as Haiao Island, with a small population and a low concentration of spiritual energy. However, it could barely be considered a small spiritual island, far superior to most deserted islands. This was Zhao Sheng's chosen destination, Bilu Island. Besides a few thousand mortals, the only remaining residents were a few cultivators who lived in seclusion and retired. There was no claim to an island owner, it was a completely free island. The island was named Bilu Island because of the unique seashells found in the nearby waters. These seashells resembled ordinary seashells, but were over 10 times larger, averaging over a foot in diameter. Their flesh, after a long period of boiling, produced a unique jade dew. Regular consumption of this dew had a mild effect of prolonging life. Consequently, some elderly and frail cultivators settled on the island, constantly purchasing live seashells at low prices to make the dew for their own consumption and selling the excess to visiting merchant ships. As a result, the island naturally attracted a number of low-level cultivators. Although the concentration of spiritual energy on Belu Island wasn't high, its influence was vast, covering the entire island and even extending into the nearby sea. Because of the thin spiritual energy and the limited local products, few foundation establishment cultivators resided here, leaving most simply passing through. This was the perfect place for Zhao Sheng to hide. 2 days later, Zhao Sheng stood beneath a cliff at the edge of the island, gazing at his newly constructed temporary cave with immense satisfaction. In addition to the necessary rooms, a training room, a talisman room, and a storage area, each room had an escape tunnel leading to the sea. Furthermore, he had deliberately placed the entrance below the sea surface, with a naturally raised boulder above. As long as the intruders didn't search too closely, Zhao Sheng was confident they wouldn't notice anything unusual. With this in mind, Zhao Sheng entered his training room, sat cross-legged, and took out 2 water-based spirit stones, holding them in his hands. He activated the Zuinun heavy water art, drawing the spiritual energy from the spirit stones bit by bit into his Danshin Ki cyclone for refinement and absorption. As his cultivation progressed, the passage of time in the outside world became meaningless to Zhao Sheng. Spring gave way to winter, and time flew by. 2 years later, in July, Bilu Island was unusually bustling. This was the time when large seashells matured and multiplied. Numerous key refining immortal cultivators hurried in and out of the island, taking boats to the sea to capture the large seashells that rarely emerged from the seabed. But around noon, 300 miles from Bilu Island, a sudden surge of winds, accompanied by lightning and thunder, erupted in the sea. The once cloudless blue sky suddenly shifted. A vast, dark cloud, seemingly unseen, enveloped the sea. Silver lightning and deafening thunder danced like a raging snake. Simultaneously, the spiritual energy within a 600-mile radius, both above and below the surface, was rapidly drawn towards that sea area, forming a massive vortex over 100 feet wide and 200 feet high. Such a massive vortex of spiritual energy could be clearly sensed even from Bilu Island, hundreds of miles away. The cultivators on the island were utterly astonished, their gazes simultaneously directed toward the changing sea. Faced with this celestial phenomenon, expressions of envy and fear alternated across everyone's faces. Spiritual energy swirled, The sky and earth changed color, and a thunder turbulation was approaching. This was clearly the sign of a core formation. It was unknown who would be targeted by this thunder turbulation. If a human achieved a core formation, it would be a cause for celebration. But if a demonic beast achieved a core formation, it would signal the birth of a Tier 3 sea beast. Belu Island was not far from here, and if this beast successfully advanced, the humans on the island might suffer. If it failed, the demonic beast's corpse alone could make the cultivators a fortune. With this in mind, some greedy cultivators, desperate for wealth, quickly boarded their boats and headed for the area. Chapter 174 Nahabri. 300 miles southwest of Bell Island, the sky thickened with dark clouds, thunder rumbled from the clouds, and a thick vortex of spiritual energy rose above the sea like a giant column of air. As it slowly rotated, it triggered a turbulent spiritual energy surge within a radius of 600 miles. Faced with this sudden and bizarre phenomenon, Bell Island was in a state of panic. The mortals fled their homes, gazing at the strange scene in the sky with panicked expressions. Meanwhile, at Bell Island's only dock, panic also reigned. Some rushed to flee, while others did not want to miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The pier's boardwalk was packed with people, and from the large and small boats docked at the pier, several cultivators shouted to the crowd, "Come quickly. The boat will depart in half an hour. 10 spirit stones will get you on board. Today's opportunity is once in a century, don't miss it. Those who want to get lucky, those who want to get rich, and those who are not afraid of death, come aboard. 10 spirit stones for a place, run. Disaster is imminent, saving your life is the most important thing. No matter how good the spirit stones are, they are not as important as your life. Not 180, just 88, an old Liu will take you away from here." In the crowd, an ordinary-looking young man in black paid 10 spirit stones for the fare and boarded a large ship with 2 strange figures. The young man in black was Zhao Sheng. To conceal his identity, he used disguise techniques and illusion talismans to temporarily change his appearance. Today, he had made a rare escape from seclusion and came to the island market, originally to exchange spirit stones for elixirs. But after seeing the strange golden elixir, he suddenly decided to go there to take a look. Cultivating immortals is all about competition. This opportunity wasn't something you waited for, it was something you fought for. Once on the ship, Zhao Sheng found a quiet corner and waited silently for the ship to depart. The atmosphere on the ship was tense and heated, with other cultivators enthusiastically exchanging ideas and forming cliques. From time to time, someone would approach Zhao Sheng, tentatively trying to get him to join their team. Zhao Sheng politely declined all of these attempts. In his eyes, the cultivators on the ship were all key refiners, not even at the foundation establishment stage. They were likely just a burden. Not long after, the ships at the docks left Belu Island one after another. Just as the sky in the distance began to crack with thunderbolts, ships of all sizes carrying cultivators braved the wind and waves, charging towards the sea. 300 nautical miles away, even at full speed, it took a full 2 hours to arrive. By the time Zhao Sheng and his companions arrived, 7 or 8 treasure ships of all sizes were already roaming the sea, searching. By this time, the thunder turbulation had long passed, the dark clouds in the sky had dissipated, and the spiritual energy vortex had largely collapsed. The concentration of spiritual energy on the sea surface had increased dramatically. With a single practice of cultivation techniques, spiritual energy surged into the Danshan. However, the cultivators who dared to venture here weren't seeking such petty gains. Although the strange phenomena had dissipated, a trace of turbulation energy lingered in the world. Seeing the calm sea, without a ripple, and no signs of any unusual surroundings, the cultivators were all invigorated, their eyes gleaming with greed. Seeing this, whether the dam-forming attempt was human or demonic beast, it was likely to have failed. Plop, plop. When someone suddenly jumped into the sea, the others, without hesitation, followed suit and began a full-scale search. Zhao Sheng didn't rush into the sea. He stood at the bow of the boat, looking up at the sky and the earth, his eyes a clear blue light flowing. Between heaven and earth, the once invisible and intangible energy of the thunder turbulation now transformed into wisps of faint black air in his eyes. This black energy continuously evaporated between heaven and earth, vanishing at astonishing speed. Looking at the area where the black energy was most concentrated, Zhao Sheng couldn't help but smile. With a splash. The next second, Zhao Sheng leaped from the bow into the sea, swimming swiftly towards the area. Because of the thunder tribulation, all marine life had fled in terror. The seabed was now empty and silent, with almost no sign of fish, shrimp, or sea beasts. In just a dozen breaths, Zhao Sheng had reached the area where the tribulation energy was most intense. Without hesitation, he flipped over, turned upside down, and with a flick of his hands, he plunged downward, diving at full speed into the unknown depths. 100 feet, 200 feet. The sea wasn't deep, and after diving 600 feet, Zhao Sheng realized he had reached the seabed. At the bottom, Zhao Sheng paused, gazing at the trench below, a look of hesitation on his face. The trench was over 20 feet wide, and the depths were pitch black. Its walls were jagged, with exposed sand and rocks, and a tangled seaweed. The trench stretched to either side of the seabed, like a crack in the earth, cleaving into the darkness beyond sight. This unique trench clearly captured everyone's attention. Zhao Sheng arrived and paused only for a moment before he saw numerous cultivators eagerly diving into the trench, quickly disappearing. Seeing this, Zhao Sheng's eyes flickered, and with a swift movement, he descended with incredible agility. 700 feet, 800 feet. Within moments of diving into the trench, the surroundings were pitch black. Zhao Sheng pulled out a fluorite, which shone brightly, illuminating the surrounding area within 2 feet. Dodging through thickets of lush seaweed, he continued his downward journey with unwavering concentration. 1,200 feet, 1,500 feet. The trench was unexpectedly deep. At his speed, he must have already descended over 3,000 feet. Yet, he still couldn't see the bottom of the trench. 3,000 feet below, the water pressure was immense. Even with Zhao Sheng's special bloodline, he felt a dull ache in his internal organs, as if he had shrunk 2 inches. Just as he was about to cast a spell to resist the pressure, Zhao Sheng suddenly saw a flash of white light in the darkness below. The light, faint as a firefly, invigorated Zhao Sheng, and he swam towards it with all his might. As he swam closer, the light grew brighter and larger. After swimming down 20 feet, Zhao Sheng's expression deepened with shock. A shell, unimaginably large, appeared before him. Its surface was pure white, densely crisscrossed with wavy lines, and it shone with a dazzling white light. Its appearance was similar to that of a large seashell, only magnified countless times. The trench, over 20 feet wide, was completely filled by its immense bulk. This ancient seashell, which had lived for countless years, was now only a shell. Zhao Sheng swam to the side and saw the shell slightly open, supported at its top and bottom by 5 strange stone pillars. The pillars were about 7 feet thick and several feet tall. From top to bottom, over 100 ancient runes were swirling inscribed on them, surrounded by countless wavy lines. Each pillar was inlaid with a spiritual stone the size of a wash basin, and from time to time, ripples of light shone up and down the pillars. A white light curtain connected the 5 pillars, obscuring his view of what lay beyond. As Zhao Sheng entered the light curtain, he felt a sharp sound of wind in his ears, and a gigantic skull collided head-on. The skull was a shiny black, radiating a thick black aura, giving it an unmistakable sinister quality. Zhao Sheng feared no sneak attack. His eyes gleamed brightly, and without flinching, he flicked his hand. Nearly 100, 2-foot-long, crystalline water arrows materialized out of thin air before him, scattering towards the skull. At the side of the water arrows, the skull's hollow eye sockets glowed brightly green, and its vast, hollow mouth opened, bursting forth with gray-green phosphorescent flames. The water arrows, like water meeting fire, instantly exploded into a vast expanse of white vapor. However, the dark green phosphorescent flames persisted undiminished, piercing through the water arrows and blazing directly towards Zhao Sheng. Seeing this, Zhao Sheng's eyes narrowed, and he thrust his right hand forward, releasing a celestial ball of lightning. Upon impact with a scale like fire, the ball exploded with a bang, a shower of lightning sweeping the sky of phosphorescent flames away. Without hesitation, Zhao Sheng launched 2 more lightning balls, colliding with a black skull. Blessed by his natural talent, Zhao Sheng cast talismans with lightning speed, unleashing a second-level water mine talisman with a single thought. Boom! The black skull, struck repeatedly by lightning, was instantly blasted into a dull, dark glow, sending it flying backwards. Its surface suddenly cracked, and with a thud, it shattered into several fragments, falling to the ground. Simultaneously, a tall, thin old man not far from Zhao Sheng screamed in agony, his face turning utterly pale. "How dare you destroy my treasure?" The tall, thin old man pointed at Zhao Sheng, shouting in shock and fury, but a hint of fear flickered in his eyes. Others might not know, but he knew it all too well. He had cultivated the rotten fire ghost skull for decades, slaying countless formidable foes in the past. He hadn't expected to be annihilated by that man's lightning magic in a single encounter. This man must be a Foundation establishment cultivator. As the tall, thin old man froze in fear, Zhao Sheng didn't seize the opportunity to attack, but instead surveyed his surroundings. He was utterly astonished. He hadn't expected the shell's interior to be so much larger than the exterior. It was incredibly spacious, over 100 feet in diameter and nearly 20 feet high, resembling a miniature cavern. In fact, it had truly been transformed into a cavernous paradise, complete with courtyards, pavilions, stone pavilions, green trees, spiritual fields, and ponds. If Zhao Sheng hadn't known they lay 3,000 feet beneath the sea, he would have thought he'd arrived in a paradise. What is this? Zhao Sheng was stunned. The name of a rare treasure suddenly popped into his mind, Nanhe Shell. The Nanhe Shell is a rare shellfish unique to the Shattered Star Sea. It possesses inherent spatial properties. Besides being able to store items, it also possesses some of the benefits of a cavernous paradise. In ancient times, Nanhe shells over 1,000 years old were hunted relentlessly by ancient cultivators because they could be refined into portable cave dwellings. In the past few thousand years, this rare shellfish has become nearly extinct. The tall, thin old man glanced at Zhao Sheng, then took a step back, attempting to quietly escape. "Wait, where are you going?" Zhao Sheng, startled, immediately shouted coldly. The tall, thin old man stopped and whispered a threat. "Senior, I advise you to leave immediately, otherwise you won't be able to leave once my uncle master withdraws his hand." "Oh, who is your uncle master?" Zhao Sheng glanced at the exquisite courtyard not far away. From there, shouts and shouts rang out. Occasionally, black skeletons flew up and down, stirring up green flames that clashed with the golden sword rainbows, emitting vast bursts of black air and golden light. From the outside, the battle was fierce and the two sides were in a stalemate. However, judging by the tall, thin old man assigned to guard the gate, the skulls clearly had the upper hand, otherwise, they wouldn't have left such a powerful warrior unused. It seemed that if he didn't intervene, the other side would be quickly defeated. Zhao Sheng didn't want to see this happen. After all, muddy waters are the best place to fish. There were at least 2 Foundation establishment cultivators fighting inside. How could he, a mere cultivator at the 8th level of key refining, reap the benefits without some trickery? Thinking of this, Zhao Sheng looked back at the tall, thin old man, hoping to extract some information from him. Preconceived notions. The old man mistook Zhao Sheng for a Foundation establishment cultivator, and a sense of fear welled up in his heart. He also wanted to stall for time, so upon hearing the question, he immediately said, "My uncle master is Master Kugu. He's roamed the outer seas for centuries, his power unmatched. I advise you to leave this place immediately." "Oh, so powerful. How come I haven't heard of him?" Zhao Sheng asked with a smile, not rushing to act. The tall, thin old man then spoke with a flourish. "You haven't heard of him, but you're ignorant. Let me mention another name, the Corpse Demon Pirates. You've surely heard of them." "My uncle master is a member of them," Zhao Sheng frowned. The Corpse Demon Pirates had been rampant in the Shattered Star Sea for 500 years, a notorious threat. Legend has it that every crew member of the Corpse Demon Pirates had a cultivation level of at least Foundation establishment, and the captain was a late-stage giant and true person. If what this man said was true, this would be a tricky situation. Just a few words passed as the battle group on the other side experienced a new development. The golden sword's radiance dimmed, and they were retreating steadily under the siege of the skulls, seemingly on the verge of defeat. Seeing this, Zhao Sheng hesitated no longer. He reached for the storage bag at his waist and threw out 7 or 8 first-level water arrow talismans, each stacked in more than 20 layers. In an instant, thousands of water arrows suddenly filled half the sky, their sharp edge swiftly swamping the tall, thin old man. For the past 2 years, Zhao Sheng had spent his free time drawing talismans, and over time, his storage bag was overflowing with various stacked talismans and second-level true talismans. The remaining defective items were exchanged for elixirs and spirit stones. The death of the tall, thin old man seemed to serve as a warning, and the battle instantly intensified. Zhao Sheng smiled faintly, and in a flash, he vanished into thin air. Zhen Yu frantically dodged everywhere, bombarding the pursuing skulls with her flying sword. Clearly, These skulls had been meticulously crafted by their master, each one as strong as steel and impervious to swords and spears. Ordinary magical weapons couldn't even scratch them, forcing them to retreat 3 feet from the sharp edge. The golden spirit sword, constantly burned by the green flames, slowed its movement, its blade covered in green marks, and lost its former power. In its struggle with the 3 one-horned black skulls, it was unexpectedly entangled by the green flames. As the sword's light gradually dimmed, sweat began to pour down Zhen Yu's face. Seeing this, the withered and emaciated Master Ku Gu, who resembled a living skeleton, chuckled strangely, infusing a spiritual consciousness and power, commanding the one-horned ghost skulls to charge at Zhen Yu, attempting to end the battle as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, Zhao Sheng had already sneaked into the courtyard. After a furtive glance at Master Ku Gu, he no longer hesitated, flipping his hand and grasping 2 second-tier water mine talismans. Go! With a low shout, 2 massive azure balls of lightning suddenly soared into the air, piercing deep into the swarm of ghost skeletons before exploding. Instantly, the sky erupted in brilliant fireworks, sending the swarm of ghost skeletons careening in all directions. The withered bone master's expression changed. He was a disciple of the corpse god sect's ghost skeleton sect, and he was deeply terrified of thunder magic. With a grim gesture, he summoned the swarm of skeletons back overhead, coalescing into a cloud of blazing green flames. Chapter 175 5 Luckfish Pearl and Ancient Painting Murder. Who are you, the Hidden One? How dare you attack us from behind? Do you dare to show yourself? The withered bones master raised his head and looked around, his expression stern as he shouted. Zhen Yu took the opportunity to recall the golden spirit sword. As the golden light surrounded her, she felt relieved. Her almond-shaped eyes looked around the courtyard hopefully, hoping that Zhao Sheng would come out and join her in fighting the withered bones demon. Zhao Sheng stood in a corner of the courtyard, secretly watching the 2 Foundation establishment cultivators. After a moment's hesitation, he withdrew his talisman power and appeared in front of the other 2. Seeing that Zhao Sheng was young and had no obvious aura, Master Ku Gu couldn't help but be more cautious and said in a cold voice, "Who are you? I advise you not to wade into this muddy water. If you leave as soon as possible, I will forgive you the crime of sneak attack just now." Zhao Sheng ignored Master Ku Gu's threat, turned his head to look at Zhen Yu, and said loudly, "My fellow Taoist, how about the 2 of us join forces to deal with this demon first?" Zhen Yu nodded quickly and responded, "You are absolutely right, Hehe." When Master Ku Gu saw that the 2 people opposite him ignored him, he was immediately furious. He laughed strangely and roared, his face fierce, "You 2 are still a little naive to want my life." As soon as the voice fell, he immediately glared at Zhao Sheng fiercely, with a fierce light in his eyes, reaching into his arms, as if to take something else. Seeing this, Zhao Sheng had no time to explain himself. He immediately shouted at Zhen Yu, "You attack, I support." With that, he flung the 3 talismans in his hand into the air. As the talismans crumbled to ash, a vast rain cloud suddenly formed above the courtyard. In an instant, a shower of raindrops, gleaming with the cold light of swords, poured down. The Master of Withered Bones, observing this scene, showed disdain. With a sneer, he pulled out a thick, iron-blue skull shaped like a pot lid from his bosom and tossed it without a second thought. With a roar, the object suddenly expanded nearly 100-fold, emitting a brilliant azure light as it blocked his way overhead. Bang, bang, and bang echoed continuously. The rain of swords and the massive skull disintegrated into specks of watery light upon contact, leaving the skull unscathed. Ha, ha, the Master of Withered Bones laughed wildly, then pointed at Zhao Sheng. The swirling group of ghost skeletons instantly split into 8 or 9 skulls, spewing green flames as they rushed towards Zhao Sheng. Simultaneously, a golden sword rainbow roared from the other side, slicing the Master of Withered Bones in the waist. Despite being outnumbered, the old demon remained calm. With a wave of his right hand, the remaining ghost skeletons immediately faced the sword rainbow, engaging in a grueling battle with the flying swords. Elsewhere, Zhao Sheng flicked his hand and unleashed 300 Ice Blades talismans. The talismans suddenly exploded, releasing hundreds of transparent, crescent-shaped ice blades, carrying a chilling chill into a vast icy cloud that enveloped the charging ghost skeletons. The green flames and the cold collided, sending a cloud of mist billowing. Countless ice blades spun around the ghost skeletons, slaying them, slowing their movements. Zhao Sheng, distracted by this, Did it give Master Kukui a chance to catch his breath before instantly flinging out 2 shimmering talismans? Instantly, 2 dragon roars echoed over the courtyard. 2 lifelike, emerald green dragons, as thick as buckets, suddenly materialized and pounced upon Master Kukui with astonishing force. "You're looking for death?" Master Kukui's pupils shrank upon seeing this, and after a barrage of curses, he immediately formed a magical spell with both hands, causing his massive, iron-blue skull to instantly expand by 3 times. But then something else occurred that stunned Master Kukui. The 2 dragons separated, one wrapping around the skull while the other, with a swing of its tail, hooked itself onto the rain clouds overhead. The clouds quickly engulfed the dragon's body, and its mouth opened wide, spewing forth a stream of transparent sword threads like a vast, silken string. Seeing this, Master Kukui couldn't help but reveal a look of horror. Exchanging talismans, merging forms into intentions, such profound talisman techniques were actually being performed by a young man, without even a hint of effort. Master Kukui's face darkened, and a ruthless heart flared. Then, a single horned skull among the swarm of ghost skeletons suddenly exploded, its raging green flame surging like fuel to a raging fire. Master Kukui's spiritual sense pulsed, and the green flames surrounding the ghost skeleton suddenly split in half, transforming into a massive flaming shield that descended from the sky and landed before him. Bang, bang, bang. The flaming shield vibrated incessantly. As large slivers of sword thread pierced its surface, the green flames shrank significantly, causing the shield to flicker and dim, as if on the verge of extinguishing. Seeing this, Zhen Yu's face lit up with joy. As she controlled the golden spirit sword to break through the swarm of ghost skeletons, she took the opportunity to throw out 2 small golden swords. The swords shot out, transforming into 2 streaks of golden light that, low to the ground, viciously struck Master Kukui's legs. HMPH, seeing this, the Master of Withered Bones' face turned as black as the bottom of a pot, his expression ferocious. He thrust 2 fingers of his left hand into his mouth, biting them off with a fierce determination. After a quick chew, 2 streams of blood suddenly erupted. The blood instantly shot into the 2 one-horned ghost skulls, which then let out strange whimpers, as if filled with joy. The next second, the 2 one-horned skulls, before the 3 of them, began to transform. With 2 crunches, the black horns on the skulls suddenly turned blood red, and 2 blood-red flames emanated from their hollow eye sockets. Then, the strange fangs in their mouths suddenly grew 3 or 4 inches, their tips razor-sharp. Blood streamed down, staining the fangs a bloody red. Go! As the one-horned skulls transformed into blood-red skulls, the Master of Withered Bones felt a sense of relief. Suppressing the excruciating pain, he pointed his crippled left hand at the approaching sword. The 2 blood skeletons' eyes flashed with blood, and they immediately transformed into 2 streaks of blood, whistling down and easily blocking the 2 sword beams. With a wide mouth, the blood skeleton swallowed the 2 flying swords, and its mouth opened and closed several times, making a sharp crunching sound. Zhen Yu's face changed drastically, and the blood skeleton on the other side opened its mouth and spewed out a rain of golden fragments, leaving a dense patch of small holes on the ground. Seeing the Master of Withered Bones so difficult to deal with, Zhao Sheng frowned slightly and weighed his options. Zhen Yu seemed to be attacking with all his strength, but he knew that the Master must have held back. This was naturally due to his wariness of him. Zhao Sheng understood the Master's mentality very well. He hadn't used his full strength yet, so there was no need to expect others to do the same. However, countless cultivators were searching for this place, and someone could break in at any moment. There was no time to delay. With this thought, Zhao Sheng's brows relaxed. He turned and gave Zhen Yu an inexplicable smile before suddenly withdrawing, his figure flashing and leaving the courtyard in a flash. Escaped. The Master of Withered Bones flashed a hint of joy, but it only lasted a moment before vanishing without a trace. Elsewhere, Zhen Yu, seeing Zhao Sheng flee without warning, was furious, her expression changing dramatically. The Master of Withered Bones was cunning and perceptive, and he quickly understood why Zhao Sheng had suddenly taken flight. Damn it! That brat must have gone out to loot treasure. Fury surged in the Master of Withered Bones, a fierce gleam in his eyes, and he suddenly let out a howl. The ghost skulls suddenly turned, their green flames extinguished, and they quickly flew back above his head. Little girl, how about we stop? Otherwise, someone else will take all the treasure, the Master of Withered Bones said to Zhen Yu in a sullen voice, after collecting the skull. Zhen Yu looked surprised. She reached out to tuck a strand of her long hair behind her ear. After hesitating for a moment, she recalled the golden spirit sword. Okay, her voice was crisp, with a slight tremor. Master Kugu nodded, revealing an unpleasant smile. Then he turned and walked away. His decisiveness left Zhen Yu stunned. But how could she fall behind? She quickly jumped up and flew after him. The two of them chased out of the courtyard, one in front and the other behind, turned half a circle, and soon arrived at the backyard. Zhao Sheng, who had left first, stood in the middle of the backyard, motionless, staring intently into the central hall, as if observing something. Master Kugu rolled his eyes a few times, barely suppressing the urge to attack. Then, his curiosity aroused, he took a few steps over. What is this? When he saw clearly what was in the central hall, Master Kugu couldn't help but reveal a look of shock. In the main hall, a charred corpse sat cross-legged on an apricot yellow cushion. A painting of an old man fishing in the cold river hung on the wall behind him. A large hole was pierced through the corpse's skull, and a fist-sized jade-white spirit bead lay between its knees. Its right hand clutched a golden tablet, roughly a foot long. Its left hand was broken. An emerald green bamboo basket lay tilted on the ground. Inside, seemingly crudely woven, was a pool of clear water, and within it swam a small fish. The fish was small, barely the length of a palm, but its body was translucent, radiating a multicolored halo that shimmered and shimmered as it swam, a breathtaking spectacle. Upon seeing the clear water, a distinct fragrance could be smelled, even from a distance. The five-element spirit fish. That's definitely it. I thought it was extinct, but I didn't expect there was even one alive here. That water, could it be the legendary clear and bright spirit water? Master Kugu muttered, his eyes wide open. In contrast, Zhen Yu stared intently at the jade-white spirit pearl, her face fascinated. If she was not mistaken, this spirit pearl must be the core of the Bay Mansion. Refining it would grant control of this miniature cave heaven. Zhao Sheng had no idea what the other two were staring at. His expression was solemn, his eyes gleaming with a divine light. He paid no attention to the charred corpse, nor to the bamboo basket, spirit pearl, or other treasures. Instead, he stared intently at the ancient painting behind the corpse. It felt as if nails had grown under his feet, and he dared not take a single step forward. He saw the ancient painting shrouded in an extremely rich purple-black aura, spreading outward, enveloping not only the charred corpse below but also the entire hall. Zhao Sheng had never seen such a dangerous object in his entire life, and he had a premonition that anyone entering its range would be doomed. Master Kugu, a greedy man, was about to rush into the hall when he suddenly saw Zhao Sheng, who had stopped dead in his tracks. A look of alarm suddenly crossed his face. Hesitating for a moment, he glanced at Zhen Yu beside him, but chose not to attack. Instead, he said coldly, I don't want anything else. I only want that bamboo basket and its contents. Zhen Yu, shaken from her trance by these words, glanced at Zhao Sheng, and decisively declared, I want that spirit pearl. After the two men had expressed their opinions, their gazes turned to Zhao Sheng. Zhao Sheng came back to his senses, stroking his chin. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded and said, Now that you've made your choices, the rest is mine. Any questions? Master Kugu immediately replied, No problem. Zhen Yu, only slightly slower, echoed, Sure. Their answers were so straightforward that Zhao Sheng was surprised. Glancing at the bamboo basket and the spirit pearl, he mentally reassessed their true value. Master Kugu was about to rush into the hall, but a golden sword rainbow flew across the sky, stopping him. Little girl, what are you doing? Master Kugu turned to look at Zhen Yu with deep displeasure. Zhen Yu said with a smile, Old skeleton, if you want to go in first, you can. But first, swear a great inner demon oath. The withered bones master flicked his long sleeves and said sternly, I've never sworn any bullshit inner demon oath. Little girl, if you keep meddling, I'll just have another go at it with you. He looked at Zhao Sheng, forced a grimace, and said, Little brother, if you don't help either of us, the spirit pearl will be yours. What do you think? Zhen Yu was anxious and immediately shouted at Zhao Sheng, Don't fall for old Mo's tricks. He's trying to defeat us piecemeal. Zhao Sheng glanced at the two of them and took a step back. Although he didn't say anything, his meaning was clear. The withered bones master smiled smugly at this and gave Zhao Sheng a satisfied look. He then threatened Zhen Yu, Get out of the way, little girl. Or else, don't blame me for being ruthless. Seeing Zhao Sheng's foolishness, Zhen Yu's mood soured, But she was no match for Master Kyugu alone. Hesitating for a moment, she reluctantly recalled her spirit sword and glared at Zhao Sheng. Master Kyugu made a magical gesture, and the ghost skulls above him suddenly dispersed, spewing green flames into a wall of flaming skulls, blocking Zhao Sheng and Zhen Yu. He then turned to face the two, but his body retreated step by step into the hall. Zhen Yu watched with resentment, feeling secretly anxious. Zhao Sheng, observing Master Kyugu's caution, couldn't help but flash a hint of self-mockery in his eyes. But he quickly concealed it, his expression as calm as water. Master Kyugu stepped back through the door and was overjoyed to see that the two had indeed not fought. He spun with lightning speed, snatched up the bamboo basket, and with an unsatisfied wave of his hand, he snatched up the spirit pearl, intending to pocket it. Since Zhen Yu had recognized the spirit pearl's core cave, it was only natural that Master Kyugu would recognize it as well. His previous words were merely a convenient tactic, and he had never intended to follow through from the beginning. However, in the moment of his elation, his gaze strayed across the painting of an old man fishing on a cold river. Suddenly, a transparent fishing line shot out from the painting, and the golden hook flashed into his skull. Instantly, Master Kyugu's eyes glazed over, and his body froze. Boom! The spirit pearl and bamboo basket fell to the ground, along with Kyugu's stiff body. No one could have imagined that a living person could die so suddenly, so silently, so strangely and mysteriously. Not only Zhen Yu, but even Zhao Sheng was unaware of Master Kyugu's death. He froze for a moment, then collapsed to the ground with a thud. What's going on? Zhen Yu felt a chill in her heart after seeing this scene, and she was so frightened that she stuttered. However, Zhao Sheng's eyes lit up. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.